welcome to the inaugural Hayes High Athletics Hall of Fame banquet. My name is Dustin Armbruster, and for the last 15 years I've served as the voice of the Hayes High Indians on Eagle Radio. It's a true honor not to only MC tonight's event, but also take part in the months of planning that led up to this moment. I'm one of the few people that have not been either a teacher, a coach, or graduated from Hayes High, and I thought that was an extreme honor until I realized they needed an MC for the event. That was the only reason I actually got asked to be on the committee, so appreciate that. Tonight we honor some of the best athletes and teams to ever don a Hayes High jersey, and 3 that helped lead and elevate Indian athletics. I hope that the honorees and their families understand the importance in being the first class of the Hayes High Athletics Hall of Fame, because this class sets the bar to which all future classes of the Hayes High Athletic Hall of Fame will be compared to. And now, Kirk Maska has a few things before we get to the meal.
Hey, I'd like to welcome everybody and just take a few minutes here to introduce and thank a few people before we get started eating, and hopefully everybody's got a place to sit. First of all, I'd like to thank the inductees, everybody that made the effort to come from near and far, their families and all that came to honor them tonight. I'd like to thank the superintendent, Ron Wilson, the principal at Hayes High, Sean Henderson, he's sitting in the back, and the administrative staff and everybody that gave us the blessing to get this thing going. Renee Booth at the USD 489 Foundation has been amazing. She has gone above and beyond to help us and get things going. And I'd like to thank our banquet sponsors that pop up on the screens from now every once in a while. Jeter Law Firm, Bank of Hayes, Premier Business Management, Edward Jones, RD Graphics, Northwest Printers, Shutter Glimpses, Hayes High Video Productions. They've all played a part in the program tonight. I'd like to thank all the individuals. A lot of you all just donated money to help get this thing going, and we really appreciate it. If any of you would like to donate, you could donate at the Hall of Fame website. It is tax deductible. I think it will tell you on there you need to send the money to USD 489 Foundation and then earmark it for the Hayes High School Athletic Hall of Fame. I'd like to thank the kiosk sponsors. What we are going to do, we have a touchscreen kiosk that's going to go up in the Commons. Hopefully we have a special place in the new high school. For those of you that don't know, we are in the process of designing and getting ready to build a new high school right behind the current high school. But we're going to have a kiosk so you can go up and touch on the 44 team, and pictures will come up, statistics, information, and those types of things. And so right now we have some kiosk sponsors that are helping us pay for that. Edward Jones, Hayes Academy of Hair Design, Hayes Recreation Commission. And hopefully we get a few more sponsors, and that'll be up and running here hopefully within the next couple weeks. I'd like to thank Taryn Hillman and Hilton Garden Inn. They did a great job getting this place ready for us. I noticed some board members here in the crowd. I've noticed some teachers. I've noticed some coaches. I've noticed some past administrators have come back, and past teachers. I really appreciate everybody showing up. I'm getting a little windy here, but I do want to thank our committee really quick. Whiff Liker from the class of 1947. We had a representative from the 50s, but he is having some health issues and hasn't been a part of anything yet. We're praying for him to get better. From 62 is Coach Mike Lease. From 64 is Joe Jeter. From 72 is Pat Scott. 1984 is Tammy Flex. From 1987 is Matt Brooks. I think in the back from 1994 is Brian Reuter. 1989, Brian Weimer. Tara Graham from 2000. And Josh Dreyer couldn't be with us tonight, but he's 05. And Paige Lunsford is from 2012. You've already heard a little bit from the voice of the Indians, Dustin Armbruster. And we've packed a lot of hours in a short amount of time. The committee has done a great job. I hope I hope it's as special as we think it's going to be tonight. Paige Lunsford has gone above and beyond. She is the one that answers all the emails, and she's the one that did the PowerPoint, and she's the one that designed the logo, and she's the one that's, anything with technology, she's pretty much the one that's on. So, and just real brief, we've established this to honor former athletes, teams, coaches, administrators, community members that have made an extraordinary contribution to Indian athletics. All the details are on the website, but the one thing that I do want to touch on, from now on, you guys are going to do all the nominating. You're going to go on the website. There's some criteria that you need to follow. They have to be graduate out of 10 years, have to be in good standing and things like that. But we'd really like for you to get on and nominate people. I think it's 5 years. We're going to keep the nominations if they don't get selected, the next year. So it'll be a lot easier for us if you nominate people and we have names and addresses and contact information and things like that. It'll save us many, many hours, especially on the gals that have different last names and things like that. So, and I think everybody's ready to eat. The last thing, my wife, I need to thank my wife. She made me and the only other thing is the committee, if we didn't do something right or we could do something better, share it with the community or one of the committee members, or get it on our website and send us a little note, and we'd love to make it better. We already have had a few ideas for next year. Just probably don't do it tonight.
All right, and this is our first award of the night, and it's one that's not in your program, and Kirk can't walk too far away from here. This whole thing is the brainchild of somebody who's retired with too much time on his hands. And so tonight, in recognition as the founder of the Hayes High Athletic Hall of Fame, we present this plaque to Kirk Maska.
You don't get to make a speech.
I know. All I'm going to say is it has been very rewarding. I can sit down and look at the 1920 Gaiden and have nothing to do with tonight's deal, and I'll sit there for 2 hours in the vault at the high school and just have the best time. And then I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to find these 3 things, and I haven't even started. So it's been really enjoyable, and hopefully, like I said, it just gets better and better. Thank you.
The 1944 state champion boys basketball team still lives as legend in the history of Hayes High School. The stories of losing players and their head coach to wartime draft is a real-life illustration of overcoming immense odds, something we like to champion as a reason to play sports. To help welcome in the 1944 and the very first inductee into the Hayes High Hall of Fame class is Mike Lease.
I'm sure this will be a comment the rest of the evening, but thank you all for being here. We had no idea when we started this. I would like to introduce the people, the team. They're all gone. They would be 96. So we found as many family as possible, and I would like to introduce them. First of all, Larry Knowles. His father, Rupert, was on the team. Ann Berlin, now Abbott. Her dad, Hap, was on the team. Hosey Meckel's daughter, Melody. And Betty Calvert, Cecil Calvert's widow. The next table back, we have Jim Stramel, whose brother Gib was on the team. Nick?
Can I mention that I might be the only person who ever saw him play basketball?
Very likely, very likely. Next to him are Gibb's two sons, Pat, who's here from Texas, Tom, who's here from Arkansas, and their sister, Elizabeth, or Beth. She and her husband came from Long Island, New York. So, if we set the mood, it's 1944. There's a year and a half to go in the war. The team loses 2 players during the season. They qualify for the state, and my dad gets his draft notice. They apply to the draft board because he'd like to go with the team. There's another minor family issue going on, but that doesn't play a part either. The assistant coach is a name that the football players will recognize, Dennis McKee. Mac was a wonderful football coach. I don't know that he knew much about basketball. So in what has to be to me, one of the oddest turn of events, they got a fellow by the name of Paul B. or Bush Gross, who was the basketball coach at Fort Hays, to go with the team. Now, Larry's told me that according to his dad, they didn't need a coach. They've been playing together since they were kids. Everybody knew what everybody could do, would do, but they have a coach who goes along. They trail the entire game. Late in the fourth quarter, Gib Stramel hits a shot. The next thing you know, Cecil Calvert hits 3 shots, and they're up by 2. That's the margin of victory. If you can believe this, the losing team was Olathe. Unbelievable. At the banquet, honoring the team afterwards, the speaker was coaching at a school that was starting to build a bit of a basketball tradition. His name was Fog Allen, who actually was here to recruit Gib Stramel. It was, I think, 2 days at least before Dad found out they won. That other event, he found out he now had a son. Mom was in the hospital the day of the game. Oh, he said that was my first birthday present. So it is my honor, privilege, to introduce for the initial induction the 1944 basketball team.
Is there anybody in attendance from the 44 representative that was wanting to say anything this evening? Not to put you on the spot, but just check that. We do have the trophy and then some certificates here to hand out to our inductees. For the teams, the trophy, the plaque will go into Hayes High School and the new Hayes High School that will be completed in just a few years. So that's where the Team 1 will reside. So we do have, if the family members would like to come up in order to have a picture taken up here. As the 44 basketball team pictures were shown, there was one of the pictures individually that was from 13th Street Gymnasium, the original Hayes High School, the old Hayes High School. You recognize the brick in the background, and that gymnasium is something of special significance to people of Hayes High School. It has held many youth camps. Jeff Beaker is one of our people that's going to be honored a little bit later. His daughter, my daughter, have grown up playing in that gym. Paige Lunsford has held camps in that gym as a high schooler. So in the background of some of those 44 pictures is 13th Street Gymnasium. And I know we're getting ready to build a brand new school, but 13th Street Gymnasium is something that lives in lore in the city of Hayes. So glad to be a part of 44 through 13th Street Gym. First individual inductee is Willard Schmidt for football, basketball, and track. His introduction will be done by Kirk Maska.
Willard was an outstanding multi-sport athlete in high school. He was a 3-year letter winner in football, starting at an offensive tackle his junior and senior year. His senior year, he led the Indians to a league championship. Willard played and lettered as a sophomore in kind of an era just from researching that sophomores didn't play a whole lot. Some of you guys can probably vouch for that, but you had to be, I think, pretty good to play back then. In basketball, Willard lettered in 2 years. He was a 2-year letter winner starting his junior and senior year. It was hard to find stats and stuff back then. It was usually just names mentioned and things like that. So the one thing that some of you, I'm not going to call you old timers, but he was on the freshman basketball team, which was referred to as the Papooses. So I'm sure some of you were Papooses, but when the 44 team won the state championship. Willard also competed in track. On the track team where he lettered as a sophomore, junior, and senior, he competed in the 120-yard high hurdles, the discus throw, the 880-yard relay, and the mile relays. In his junior year, Willard placed in 3 events at the league meet, as well as top 3 finishes in the discus 880-yard relay and the regionals to qualify for state. And just from my reading, the top 3 is all that made it to state, and the number at state wasn't quite like the numbers today. But his senior year, he continued to do the same, doing real well in the league meet and qualifying for state in the 880 and the mile relays. And like I said, there just wasn't any results. The guidance didn't have it. It wasn't much I could find in the newspaper as far as how they placed at state. After graduation, Willard attended Fort Hays State University, where he played football for 1 year. That summer, Willard got noticed by the St. Louis Cardinals. He signed and started his professional career in Hamilton in the D League, and his record that year was 22-9. He moved up fairly quickly through the minor leagues and joined the big leagues in 1952 with the St. Louis Cardinals. He played for the Cardinal organization through the 57 season. His best year, he was 10-3 on the mound. And after the 57 year, he was traded to the Cincinnati Redlegs for a guy named Kurt Flood because they were short of pitching. And so he continued to pitch for 2 more seasons in Cincinnati, and then he pitched actually for 3 more years at AAA ball, retiring in 1962. Willard was inducted into the Kansas Baseball Hall of Fame in 1989. his only record or trivia question from the major leagues is Willard was the first major leaguer that was hit by pitch twice in the same inning. And I think from looking at research or from the family or something that two other people have achieved that accomplishment since then. But Willard passed away in 2007. His wife Margaret no longer travels and couldn't be here with us tonight. But we do have 3 of his 6 children, and they are here to accept in his behalf. His son Paul, if you guys would come up, and his daughters Lisa and Lane. And the kids did say that he might not have been a Hall of Fame pitcher, but he was a Hall of Fame father.
So I just want to say, on behalf of my family and my mom, how much my dad would have loved this, and how many people we're related to in this room. There are Lisa's and Marcos and Vasquez, and so would all of his nieces and nephews and their partners who are here. Please stand so that everyone knows how many of the, over here, come on, yeah. There's a bunch of us here. Kirk's a big part of why Dad's being honored here, and he loved Hayes, and he loved coming back. We came back at least once a year, every year, and we feel like this is our second hometown, and we're just really thrilled to be here tonight, and thank all of you, and thank the people who put this together. Thank you.
The Sports Chronicles talks about athletes who either played in Kansas, were from Kansas, and something cool that they did on that particular date. I'm on Twitter and I follow this page, and on August 11th they tweeted out the following. It was on this date, August 11th, 1955, St. Louis Cardinals pitcher Willard Schmidt tossed a one-hitter in a 5-0 win over the Milwaukee Braves. Schmidt was born in Hayes, Kansas, struck out 8, including some guy named Hank Aaron. He didn't allow a hit until the 7th inning of that day. So it was kind of like somebody was smiling down to make sure that information got to us in time for this event. I'm here to introduce the 1953 and 54 football teams that never lost a varsity football game. A resounding 17 wins, no losses, and 1 tie still stand as 2 of the best years in the history of Hayes High Indian football. It was in an era of great success in the football world for Hayes. The 1949 season, the Indians won their first 8 games before losing their season finale. In 1951, the team was 7-2, and 1952 season ended with a 7-1-1 record, losing just 1 game by 7 points. This at a time when there was no playoffs. You played 9 games and you were done. During the 1953 campaign, the only non-win of the season was a scoreless tie with Great Bend in Week 2. The other games, the Indians outscored their opponents 220-59. Only twice on the season did Hayes allow their opponents to score more than once while producing 3 shutouts. The following season in 1954 remains as the only time that Hayes won every contest on their schedule. While Hayes did not have a loss in 1953, tying Great Bend, the Indians also went 8-0-1 one other time. That was in 1931, where they also had a scoreless tie with Larned. That year in 1931, Hayes allowed just 2 opponents to score in their 9 contests. Back to 1953, the Indians shared the Western Central Kansas League crown with Great Bend that year in that tie. And in 1954, won their first outright conference title since 1931, when they won the United Pacific League. Grover Nutt led the Indians as head coach for 3 seasons, totaling a record of 18-6-2 in his time. Art Lease was an assistant for both seasons. Jack Johnson assisted in 1953, Glenn Lowe in 1954. The 8-0-1 1953 season ended with Ervil Staub and Ralph Pfeiffer both being named All-Americans. That year, only 8 players from Kansas were chosen. Hayes was the only school with 2 on the list. Pfeiffer would go on to play and letter at Kansas State and be drafted by the 7th round by the Detroit Lions, who had just won the World Championship. He went on to play in the Canadian Football League, while Staub played at Kansas and spent 40 years with the Corps of Engineers. The Indians finished 5th that year in the rankings. It is a significant ranking at the time because the state champion was whoever the Topeka Capital Journal deemed as the #1 team in the state of Kansas, which, guess what, was not a small school from west of Salina. The next year, Hayes finished undefeated and finished a whole 1 spot higher at number 4. They had been the #1 ranked team until the final polls came out, when they were put under all of the other bigger schools in the state of Kansas. That 1954 undefeated team outscored their opponents 312 to 87, an average margin of victory of 25 points per game. The Indians scored 62 points in a win over Russell that year, which set a school record for points in a game that stood until 1967. Those 62 points scored in that game in 1954 still stands as the 4th most in a single game in Hayes High history, passed only by 63 points in 1967, 64 points in both 2014 and this past 2021 season. In 1954, Don Neely averaged 9.9 yards per carry. Jim Maska averaged 10.4 yards per carry. Neither of them got to play many of the 4th quarters of their games. On a personal note, I was fascinated to read through the bios of players that returned them. Nearly every one of them mentioned among their fondest memories, not a single game, not a single carry, and not a single coach. It was the time spent with their teammates on the field, both in practice and in battle. With the members of the 1953 and 54 Hayes High Indian football team in attendance, please stand now to be recognized. Roger Nelson would like to say a few words, or if there's anybody else from the team that would like to say anything, the floor is now yours.
First of all, I would like to have the people who came here to see people that played ball in 1953. Would you please stand up? Anybody that came here? Who are you trying to fool? We're just seeing who's alive. Okay, let's have the 53 team come up here, and I want Errol Staub to come up and be beside me. Errol?
He's to your right.
He's okay.
He's right there to your right.
I'm Roger Nelson. I played behind her.
He played behind Errol and was a great guard. I would like to say that Errol Staub was an All-American high school football player, and we're very proud of him. Errol Staub. Thank you very much. Of the starters for the Indians in 1953, we have 2 survivors, and that's Errol and me. So we're going to see who lasts the longest. Thank you.
Before Ralph goes away, we need to remind him that if we didn't block, he didn't run. I don't have a lot to say except the team we played on was a very, very tight-knit team, and we all got along, and the coaches took care of that. I mean, they were all there, and they always looked after us. A funny story I'm going to tell about Ralph. We were playing a game against Ellis, I think it was. Ralph broke away for a long run, and he's stepping high, got his knees up, The ball hits his knee and goes about 20 yards in the air. Ralph didn't slow down. He kept on going right through the end zone and back to the bench. Remember that, Ralph? Anyway, I want to thank you all for your participation here, and thanks for coming tonight.
Next up is a phenomenal track career that included many accolades. Joe Jeter introduces Dale Alexander to our Hall of Fame class.
Good evening. I don't know how you can beat what just happened with that football team. That is just phenomenal. Also, that 44 basketball team, I'm just in awe of all of that. But I do have a special treat for you here tonight, and that's a fellow named Dale Alexander. And you know, I don't know how many of you even know who Dale Alexander is. Well, you know what? If you don't, you're going to find out here in just a minute, because I'm going to tell you all about him. When I called Dale to tell him that he had been selected to the Hall of Fame, he gladly accepted, and then the next day called me back and said, Joe, do I get to speak? If I do, how long do I get? And I said, well, we're trying to hold it down because it's going to be until 3 o'clock in the morning if we don't. So maybe 5 minutes? And he said, okay. And he called me back the next day and said, can I have 10? And I said, well, you know, if you take 10 and I take 20, that's 30 minutes. I don't know how we're going to ever get this done. So I'll make my remarks fairly short. But there are so many things I want to tell you about Dale Alexander. Dale attended Hayes High School in 1956, 1959. In 1959, I was 13 years old, and so I'm maybe one of the few here in this room that actually saw him run, both in high school and in college. Dale's family moved from Victoria to Hayes when he was in the 4th grade, and he went over to Jefferson West School. And you know, he was a little guy, as you'll find out. Dale, you're just not really big. But he was fast. And you know, he didn't know how fast. He just knew he could outrun all of his classmates, you know, and they didn't have anything formal going on. But luckily for Hayes High, he decided to come to Hayes High and not cadets. That was our big break. And so he comes over as a freshman at Hayes High, and it didn't take very long for the coach there to figure out that Dale was pretty fast. Now, freshmen didn't get to run varsity, but Dale got put in a special at the Hayes High relays when he was a freshman. He was invited to run the 100-yard dash. And as Dale has described it to me, here's little old freshman Dale at the end of looking down the row at all of these big old mature juniors and seniors, and he was going to have to run against those guys. So they did run, and as you can imagine, Dale won. And not only did he win, he won big. And Ralph, he broke your record in the 100-yard dash. He ran a 10.2 100-yard dash, his first meet as a freshman in high school. Now, does that mean we got something going here? I think it does. And you got to remember, too, that in those days they ran on cinder tracks, and they were slower than the tracks are today. But I have to tell you that, and I don't want to keep going through all of the records and all this, but there are some things here that you need to kind of think about. Let me read off a few of the things that Dale did when he was in high school. He got first place. Well, let's do this. When he was a sophomore and could run, he got 2 gold medals in the state track meet. He got 3rd in one, and I think you fell down on a hurdle and still got 3rd. That was 180 lows, and he still got 3rd place. The next year, as a junior, he won 3 gold medals, which was all he was entitled to run, unfortunately. And then when he was a senior, he got 3 more gold medals in the state. And at that time was the first participant to ever win 3 in a row, 2 years in a row. Well, what's really cool is that that last year when he was a senior, he went to state with one other fellow named Jack Bowen. There were only 2 of them, and Jack threw the shot put. Jack won the shot put. Dale did his job. He won the 100, the 220, and the 440. they had 20 points. And Hoisington had 19.5 points. And several other teams had 18 points. And there was a little bit of a discussion among those folks as to whether or not they should have had another point or two, because they had some runners that maybe finished third rather than fifth, but there was no way to verify it. So there was a little dispute, and the Kansas High School Activities Association thought that maybe until that was resolved, that they ought to keep the trophy. Well, I recall very vividly, I was down at Shively Field with my father, Norman, who was on the school board, and he was having a discussion with Jack Haig, the track coach. And Jack was telling Norman that they wanted that trophy. And my dad pointed his finger at Jack and said, "Don't you give that blank blank thing to anybody. If you have to hide it, you hide it, but it's not going anywhere." And so I just never forgot that as a kid. Dale's records in high school are unbelievable. When he was a freshman, he set the 60-yard dash state indoor meet in Manhattan at an indoor meet. He set the record. He held the freshman 100-yard dash record at Hayes High. One of his deals was a 6.4 second run in the indoor 60-yard dash, which was one of the oldest. He held that record for 24 years. That was in Manhattan. He ran the 2:20 and 21.5, which even today would be a phenomenal time. He tied the record, the state record in 100-yard dash at 9.7, which stood for 8 years. And it just kind of goes on and on. I would be remiss if I didn't mention some of the things that he did after high school. You know, this is really about what people did in high school, but it can be verified and authenticated by what they do after high school. It just kind of shows you, well, where did we really stay? Where did we really measure up overall? Well, he went to K-State. I guess that was all right, Dale. And he ran at K-State, and he had some phenomenal times while he was at K-State. Let me tell you a little bit about what he did at K-State, if I can find my notes here. These are some of his records. I'll just say he set the fieldhouse record at the KU indoors at 6.1. He set the fieldhouse record at Kansas State in the 75-yard dash. He won the 60-yard dash at the Colorado University Indoor Invitationals. He set a new stadium record at the Air Force Academy in the 100-yard dash at 9.4. That is almost world record time at that point. He got first place in the 100-yard dash at the Arkansas Relays. It just goes on and on and on. And Dale continued to run even after college. He was involved in the Olympic Masters runs. He did that up and through 2017 and was always winning wherever he went. Your times weren't quite as good, Dale, at the end, but you did do it. I do remember watching Dale run for K-State at the KU Relays. My dad said, "We got to go down and watch Dale." My dad really enjoyed watching Dale run. And we went down and watched it. And he was running against an Oklahoma runner named Anthony Watson. And I remember that vividly. Anthony was about 6'4", long legs, and you can imagine. And Dale was Dale. And they took off in the 100. And Dale led at the 60-yard point. And then those long legs of Anthony Watson took over, and he won the race. Well, okay, fine. They later met in the indoor, and Anthony comes up to Dale and says, "Well, it's a 60-yard dash. I guess we know who's going to win this one." And so I want to read real quickly what the, if I can find it, what the newspaper said. Do I not have that with me? Well, you can see it up on the board. What the author of the news article on the state championship in 1959 said about Dale. Said he was a gentleman, said he was the most outstanding participant among 1,000 participants that were there. They interviewed him. He did a beautiful interview. And Dale is a quality guy. He's a gentleman. He's just an unbelievable track man and sprinter. And I am so pleased to introduce him now. Dale, please come forward. Now, before you start, I got one more thing to say. I said something about that trophy.
Yes.
Well, guess what?
Oh,
I want to join
I
you
didn't see
up
that.
with this is Dale's trophy, and believe me, for 63 years it's been at Ace High and it's never leaving. So there you go.
Thank you, Joe, for that great introduction. And I'll tell you this, I really am the guy he's talking about. Just a much older and I think a heck of a lot slower. So, but I wanted to, I guess, first of all, thank the committee and everybody for everything you guys put together. We know it's a lot of work and you did a great job, and a big hand to you guys. As you can imagine, it's a huge honor and privilege for me to be here tonight, to be inducted with the rest of these great athletes and coaches, and I'm honored to be here, so thank you. I actually competed at Hayes High from 1955 through 1959, and anyway, we had a great time, and I always remember, well, because it was before cell phones and laptops, but I always have to remember this. My daughter always said something that made my sons and I crack up, and I have to tell you that. So we'd sit around and we'd talk about track and running, and Melissa would always say, and I would try to say it in her words, "My dad used to run on dirt." Well, no, not really. We ran on cinder, and that was the preferred surface. But at that time, Hayes High was actually on 12th Street, and about 2 blocks west of the school, as a lot of you remember. That's where the football practice field was, and that was grass. But the outside perimeter was actually dirt. So we did run on dirt to practice on. So I guess that really does age us. So anyway, I should say, even though I left Hayes High and Hayes a long time ago, I still have a lot of close connections. I have actually 3 children that live here and grandkids. So I did my children. I had Todd Alexander's no longer with us, but then I have Melissa Alexander, who worked for Kansas State, and she worked at the experiment station. Toby Alexander, and then I have my grandkids. The oldest one is Monica Alexander. Stand up, Monica. So you can see it. Stand up. Come on, honey. Monica, she lived here from school. Now she lives in Denver. And then I have the oldest grandson, Jacob. Jacob graduated about 6 years ago, and he is now going to be teaching at Hayes Middle School. And then I have Shelby Alexander. She just graduated, but she's off to Kansas State. Joe, talk to them. Anyway, she's just checking in today. And then I have the youngest grandson who will be becoming a freshman at Hayes High this year. Easton Alexander. I also want to recognize a couple other people who lived here, and one still does, and that's the Leary girls, in case everybody remembers those. There's Michelle. Can stand up if you can. It's Michelle. Thank you. She still lives in Hayes. And then there's Sue Leary. Where are you, Sue? Oh, there you are. Sue lives in Denver. And then Kate Leary. She also came out. So I have to say, about any sport and about winning in anything. You know, winning's not an individual thing, so you guys know. But winning takes you need a lot of help and support. You need from your friends, your family, your coaches, and I was very lucky I had all of that. I had a great coach. His name was Jack Haig, and Coach Haig was the head football coach and head track coach. And anyway, with Jack, I personally never ever seen him take a start or see it, so I've never really seen him run. But he was very instrumental in me becoming a sprinter. He had a lot of insight about that. And I can sort of hear him today, so I'll pass this information on to you in case any of you want to go out and sprint later or something. But I can hear him, he used to say, Alex, okay, here's what you do. Stay low, keep your hips down, run with your legs behind you, use your arms and pump, and don't look up. I go, oh, don't look up, what the heck, you know. But anyway, that was his advice. He always said, stay relaxed. That was in the starting position. And then once we got to the running position, he'd always go, okay, now when you stand up, make sure you keep your hips under you. Don't run with your legs behind you. Now you run with your legs out in front of you. Okay, pump your arms up to your nose. I go, oh my God, okay. Don't move your head. And always stay relaxed. That was his big thing. Don't get tight. But he was always big on form. He always thought form was great. And it sort of followed me all through my running and my career in running. But he'd always say, look, no matter what you do when you're out here, I want you to look good when you're running. I said, look good when I'm running. He said, just look good when you're running. If you look good, you'll run good. So that's what I want you to do. So he'd always have all these examples of people who cross their arms. Anyway, he's a great coach, and I loved him, and I loved being at Hayes High and all the rest of it. So with that, I'll say I'm, again, honored, and it's a privilege to be part of this nomination, to be part of this group, and I appreciate it. So good sprinting to all of you.
Joe will be staying up here in a moment to introduce our next inductee. Gene Ryder goes in next. Over the past 15 years as voice of the Hayes High Indians, I've been able to witness some great basketball at Hayes High. Some of those individual players have landed in the top 10 for single season and career statistics. There is one name that I seem to mention more than others on the air about who is in the top 10. And after all these great players of the last 15 years continue to be in the top 10. Gene Ryder. Gene will now be inducted for both basketball and track. Please welcome back Joe Jeter.
Good evening once again. This is a special occasion for me and for some of the gentlemen that I'm going to introduce here in just a minute to present our teammate Gene Ryder. Tragically, Gene passed away way too soon in life. He was survived by a son and a daughter. His son lives in California and his daughter in Texas. I've been in contact with the family. They were unable to be here tonight, but they wanted me to express to all of you their thanks for recognizing Gene and his exploits on the basketball floor. It means a lot to them, and they were sorry that they couldn't be here. But in their stead, I've got some buddies that are here that were teammates of Gene, along with myself, and we're just sort of going to be his family here tonight. So I want to introduce Jerry Reuter over here. Jerry, stand up. Everybody knows Jerry. If you've ever had a Coors beer, it's Jerry, but Jerry's mostly known as Brian's dad. And Diane, his wife, is with him. My wife, Cheryl. Henry Kruger in the background standing up there. Henry, I have to tell you that Henry was a great baseball player at Hayes High. And our senior year, we got second in the state in the combined A-AA. We lost to Wyandotte High School in the finals of the state championship. Otherwise, he'd probably be in the Hall of Fame here tonight. But Henry went on a hitting streak. He had like 6 hits in a row during that playoff time and went to the University of Kansas and played baseball. And his wife, Phyllis, is with us. And Phyllis was the darling cheerleader at Hayes High during those years. And Rich Kramer, we all know Rich Kramer, stand up Rich, school board member, and really instrumental in establishing the 489 Foundation, which is a wonderful thing he did. And his friend Kurt Longpine, we all know Kurt's here with us tonight. He was not on our team, he's way too young. And Earl Brungart. Earl, stand up. Earl and Shirley. Now, Earl scored the second most points on our team, and he was actually told not to shoot. So I can't imagine what he would have done if he could. But you all know Earl. How many of you had driver's ed from Earl? Surely there's a whole bunch of you that learned how to drive from him. Well, anyway, these gentlemen are going to help me here tonight. So they're here tonight to reaffirm what Gene Ryder did. You know, it's sort of like was mentioned earlier. There aren't a lot of statistics that you can find in the 1960s You have to go to the yearbook, the guidance, the newspapers, and that kind of thing, and personal knowledge. And so we all have personal knowledge of this. But Gene played basketball at Hayes High from 1961 through 64. And he averaged his senior year 23.6 points a game, which to this day still is the highest average of any player at Hayes High. And I find that pretty unbelievable considering all the wonderful basketball players we've had. But truthfully, if we'd had the three-point line at that time, and if we'd have played faster basketball, I can't imagine what Gene would have done. If he'd have played for Rick Keltner, he'd have probably averaged 50 points a game. But in any case, Gene was a wonderful player. He was a 6-foot kid, weighed 180 pounds, very strong, very quick, had big hands. He just could shoot the ball like crazy. And during our senior year, he was defended many times by 2 or 3 players because Sierra wasn't allowed to shoot. So he really did a wonderful job. During the 2 years that Gene started, his junior and senior years, Hayes High went 29-13, which isn't great, but it's still, if you go back and look in the record books, that's one of the better two-year times that we've had at Hayes High. During the senior year, we played the #1 team in Class A in the state twice, went into overtime with them twice, and Gene ended up scoring the baskets to win those games. The Dodge City coach mentioned after a game that he was musing that he thought Ryder had scored 50 points. He was really upset because he had guys all over him. Well, he only scored 28 that night. Gene was a unanimous WCKL All-Star. That was the West Central Kansas League. It was the old league that consisted of Dodge City, Garden City, Pratt, Great Bend, Russell, Larned, and Hayes. Gene made 471 points his senior year, which is still the 5th highest point total for a Hayes High player. And going back to what somebody said, sophomores really didn't play that much in those days. I don't know why. We had the junior varsity, and that's sort of where people were unless they were special. Gene got moved up halfway through the sophomore year, but it really didn't. He would have had many more points, I believe, in today's deal. In his career, he had 682 points, 16th all time, and he had a 36-point game his senior year. And there aren't statistics to prove it, but I would bet you that nobody before that time had scored 36 points in a Hayes High basketball game. And I don't know, maybe Rick knows if there's anybody that scored more points than that in the game.
How many was it again?
36?
I know one guy that had about 36 or so. Tracy McCracken.
There you go. Gene was also selected All-State first team in Class A and one of the top 5 all classes his senior year in both of the major newspapers. Now, Gene was so highly regarded that it was not unusual for us to have visitors at our practices. Ted Owens at KU and Tex Winter at K-State would be at our practices from time to time watching. And Rich Kramer and I used to have this discussion about which one of us were they recruiting. And I think he just wanted to get us out of the way. But in any case, K-State won, and Gene moved on to Kansas State to play basketball. Now, in those days, the freshmen were not eligible for varsity action, so he played on the freshman team. And the freshman team at K-State had a game scheduled in Lawrence at Allen Fieldhouse with the KU freshmen. And I knew about it. I was a student at KU then, and I could hardly wait to get down to watch Gene play, just see how he'd do. Well, as fate has it, Gene got matched up and guarded, and was guarded by a fella who was a 2-time All-American and All-Star with the Boston Celtics and is in the NBA Hall of Fame, JoJo White. And I was really wondering when they started this, we got a problem. Gene acquitted himself beautifully. I'm not saying he got the better of JoJo, but he did a great job and really made me proud. And it just verified how good an athlete and ball player he was. Gene was a recipient of the Smith Swim Carpenter Senior Athlete of the Year Award. He also played shortstop on the baseball team, was the fourth leading hitter. He also did some pitching. And we really miss Gene. He struggled with health issues, but nevertheless, he's going to be remembered by all of us that knew him as a fantastic basketball player and a very good friend. We miss him, and at this time I would like for Jerry and Rich and Henry and Earl to come forward and help me accept his recognition.
I'll stay with you here for the next couple of inductees, and if you notice over the first portion of this program, it's been sans female. Well, there weren't a lot of female sports at the time that we were able to go through. You're next. Oh, Carmen Ginther. Sorry, everybody. We'll hold off on this. Carmen Ginther was the first of three sport female athletes to be inducted. For Carmen, the list includes tennis, basketball, and track. Introducing Carmen Kirkmaska.
I was fortunate enough to be in the same class as Carmen, and so I kind of witnessed firsthand everything that she did. Excuse me. And Carmen was kind of a pioneer in athletics, girls athletics at Hayes High School, as track was started in 1975 for the state of Kansas, and basketball was started her sophomore year in 1976. Tennis had been around forever at Hayes High. It wasn't recognized as an activities association sport though until 1971. So she was right at the beginning, and I mean, I can tell you what girls basketball looked like at the beginning. I mean, I remember 80-2 games and things like that. But she was way beyond, I mean, she was talented enough to play today. She was way ahead of her time. And, you know, I always assumed it was from playing with her brothers who were excellent athletes, but sorry, fellas, but Carmen was a lot better than you. Carmen's best sport was in the fall, tennis. She was a four-year letter winner coming up from the junior high in those days, and lettered on the high school tennis team. Her sophomore year, she was league and regional champions. They went on to state, and they won their first round match, which was the first time Hayes High had won a match at the state championships. They lost their second round, but she would remedy that. Her junior year, she once again was league regional doubles champ with Sherry Searle, and they also added the state title that year, and they were undefeated. Her senior year was a mirror image of her junior year, as her and Sherry defended their league, regional, and state titles. The only difference that somewhere somebody along the line defeated them. They had one loss that year. And Carmen was always playing. She was always doing sports. She was always doing things. And Carmen played year-round. She played in summer tournaments, and she always wanted to play as much as possible. And she would enter singles, she would enter doubles, she would enter co-ed doubles. And on occasion, when there was no tennis players or anybody to play, she would ask me. I remember the first tournament I played with Carmen was at Great Bend, Kansas. I remember two things. It was at Great Bend, Kansas, and she told me to stay out of her way. So, like I said, the first year of basketball at Hayes High was when Carmen was a sophomore. She was a starter, and she led the team in scoring with 11 points per game, and she also led the team in rebounding. Her junior year, she also led the team in scoring at 12 points per game, and she led the team in rebounding at 7.4. She probably led in other statistics, but those are the only things that I can find record of. She was all league and honorable mention all state that year. Carmen's senior year wasn't much different, and she was a leading scorer and led the team to its first winning record, which only 3 years old. It was the first winning record at 10-5. She once again received postseason All-League and state honors. In track, Carmen competed in the shot, discus, javelin, and red leg on the 880-yard relay. She would set school records in the shot, discus, and softball throw, which she continued to break throughout her career because she was breaking them every year. She finished with a throw of in the shot of 39 feet 6.5 inches, discus 127 feet 5 inches, and the softball throw 207 feet. She actually lost the softball record to a freshman that year, which Dustin will introduce here in a minute, but Marla Powell threw 211 to beat her record in the softball, but she had the shot and discus records for many years to follow. Carmen qualified for state indoor and outdoor both during her junior year, and she's qualified for state outdoor track meet her senior year. She had a second place finish in the discus at state, and she had a sixth place finish in the softball throw. Like many of our inductees, she was involved in many school activities. I didn't realize until I started reading up on her that she was in orchestra, she was in choir, she was in piano. She was a sectional champ in piano as a sophomore and went to nationals as a junior. And after graduation, Carmen continued her successes at Fort Hays State as she participated both in music and athletic scholarship. And I think she was on the Fort Hays State Symphony since she was 14 years old or something like that. And so, she was an honor roll student, and she was just in everything, and the fact that she could do all those things and be as successful as she could just told you what a great person she was. And after she graduated from college, she kind of gave her talents out. She coached multiple sports. She achieved her United States tennis professional card, I think it would be, and was a tennis pro. And Carmen continues to play tennis today, but she informed me that her favorite sport she took up later in life was ice hockey. So, ladies and gentlemen, Carmen Gamber.
I'd like to say a few things. You guys do realize that Kirk Masco's 1978 Male Athlete of the Year, don't you? Super athlete. So this is like deja vu. The pictures together again. Yeah, ice hockey I picked up in when I was in 40s, 45. And the main reason was because all of my tennis students played ice hockey. They said, well, if we have to play tennis, you have to play ice hockey. And so I did, and there she goes. But again, I'd like to thank Kirk for the opportunity and the introduction.
Next up on our list, the next two inductees, assuming that I'm in the right order now, could have gone in together and are certainly going in as individuals because they earned that right. Marla Powell Harmon and Terry Sargent Harms. Both fantastic run of female sports for Hays High. They shared the Female Athlete of the Year of the Award as seniors, and both will be inducted tonight for volleyball, basketball, and track. Marla was not able to attend tonight. Marla lettered 4 years in volleyball, basketball, and track at Hays High. The summer after graduation, she was selected for a junior national team from a 5-state area. 2 of her teammates ended up being U.S. Olympians. When thinking back on her athletics, Marla mentions all the juggling that took place, home and social life, school and grades, all the time spent conditioning and traveling with all of that learning the life skills thing that goes into growing up, and the commitment to herself and others. Marla ended up lettering 3 years in volleyball at Missouri State University. She relayed the following. Title IX went into effect when I was in 7th grade, allowing women to participate in men's sports as a female team if there wasn't an equivalent sport choice available. So Marla and a handful of other girls competed in boys track as a girls team against the boys and won top 3 individual team multiple times. Marla resides in Springfield, Missouri, where she played college volleyball, spending 20 years working for the Parks and Rec, where she supervised the tennis department for 8 years, working with ground level tennis all the way up to the pro circuit, even spending time behind the scenes of the world team tennis. Now Marla is a licensed professional counselor. Marla says her fondest high school memory was, quote, wrestling the regional trophy away from Terry after winning the regional senior year. Knowing it was a sure thing and maybe my only trophy, I remember thinking, we may not get a state trophy, I wanted this one. But I let Terry hold the one at state when they placed there. But also along with that is the behind the scenes is the time you spend with a team. The blood, sweat, and tears you experience together. Trying to figure out who you are as a person, who you want to be, and what you're going to do about it. She says, I remember the camaraderie and the laughter and the sense of accomplishment and pride of working together, as well as the jealousy and meanness from teammates and fans. All are a normal part of what people mean when they talk about being involved in sports and what it teaches us. It teaches us to rise above adversity and that it isn't easy working as a team, but worth it. Those are the life lessons we receive from sports. It's the very epitome of what we all champion as the reason that we played sports, the reason we put our kids and our grandkids in sports. And Marla says the exact same thing all these years later. As we mentioned, Marla couldn't be here tonight, accepting on the behalf of Marla, before she gets her own, Terry Sargent Harms.
I just want to say a couple things about Marla. She was such an athlete, and I aspired to be like her, and she brought me up and kind of coached me on the side, especially in volleyball. I moved to her hometown of Hayes, America, and the sophomore year, and she'd already been playing volleyball, and Coach Kleiber sitting back there at the table with me, and I told her, I said, Coach, you had it rough, because I had never touched a volleyball, didn't know what I was doing, and between Coach Kleiber and Marla, they brought me up to where I could go on and play even in college and stuff. I aspired to be the type of athlete that Marla was. It was a great introduction for her. She was an inspiration for me and our teammates, and I am hoping to catch up with her next month and hand deliver this to her and give her a really big hug.
Terry can't go too far away because now we're going to talk about her and her introduction. Terry lettered in basketball for 2 years, basketball 3 years, and track 3 years while at Hayes High. She was part of the USA Junior National Training Team and made the US VBA regional team in both 1980 and 1981. In basketball, Terry received multiple awards, including All-State, All-Class Basketball Team in 1981. She finished second in the state high jump competition on 3 different occasions. Terry lettered in volleyball, basketball, and softball while at Fort Hays State University. You might have noticed that that was not in the Hayes High listing of lettering. No, it wasn't. She was also named All-Conference in all 3 sports and was a 2-time All-American in volleyball and was part of the 1985 USA volleyball team. She was All-District 10 team in volleyball all 4 years, a 2-time member of the NAIA Volleyball Summer Tournament, and is still listed in the top 5 for blocks and kills at Fort Hays State University, where, oh, by the way, she was the 1986 Fort Hays State University Women Athlete of the Year and is a Hall of Famer there as well. Terry also included in her letter among the memories that she cherishes the most was time spent with Marla and the moment that Hayes beat Great Bend when Marla tipped an inbound pass to the floor, Terry picked it up and scored, all in the final 3 seconds, down by 1 point in overtime. Thank you for beating Great Bend. points that you remember where you were, Terry listed the date, December 12th of 1980, still has the date. Please welcome, for a second time, and now for her own Hall of Fame introduction, Terry Sargent Harms.
Thank you. I want to make sure and thank God for the blessings that He has given me throughout my life. I have lived a charmed life, been mostly healthy through all of my career and adulthood. I want to thank my husband for being here with me, my best friend, my parents, who I don't know how many stadium seats they sat in over the years, a lot. And they are here for me again today. Coach Kleiber, her husband asked her, I don't know, sometime this summer, I'm assuming, I wonder whatever happened to that Marla Powell. And she started Googling. And here she is sitting at the table. Such an honor because, as I mentioned, I walked into the volleyball court just weeks after moving to Hayes. And I did not know ball. I didn't know how to bump. I didn't know how to set. I didn't know. One time I think she referred to my fingers as stone when it came to setting. So I went to Marla and I said, how do I have soft fingers like you? And so she gave me some drills to do, laying on my bed with the volleyball. Marla really did bring me up to be a better teammate, a better player. She deserves this honor so much. I also want to make sure that the coaches of the other teams or the other sports also know how much I appreciate all of the time and effort they put into us athletes, because they built us pretty much from the ground up. And whatever we did with ourselves after high school, it's because of that foundation. And it is amazing the number of years in sports that coaches put in to the hundreds and thousands of kids just wanting to have a little fun on the court, on the field. Coach Mitchell was the basketball coach. He came in maybe the year before I did. He was so respectful to us girls. He always wanted to call us by our first names. Sherry Searle, it was mentioned earlier with Carmen Ginther playing. Sherry and Carrie Giles and me, Terry, were on the team, and in a noisy gym, can you understand the difference between Sherry, Carrie, and Terry? And he got frustrated and said, okay, I'm not going to call you by the last name, that's disrespectful. What's your middle name? Lynn. What's your middle name? Ann. What's your middle name? Lynn. He ended up calling us by our last name because it wasn't going to work out. But he was such a fundamentalist. I was very privileged to get to come back in 2012 and honor him with a bench out there at Hayes High. He was amazing on inbound plays, on all the fundamentals of offense and defense. Made a huge difference on my career at Fort Hayes. And then Coach Schmidt, he was assistant coach in basketball and also my high jump coach. He knew how to get into my head. I can remember one practice in track. I never could get myself to jump higher than 5'9". That day was weights day to gain some strength. And I was having one of those teenage emotional days, and I was not into it. And he goes, tell you what, let me set the bar wherever I want. If you jump it, no weights. He set the bar, I jumped it, I went running around the track, no weights. And then I asked him, what'd you set it at? And he said, 6 foot. I never did clear that in competition, but I knew that I could. I think that maybe he should have put that weight thing there at the state track meets each year. But I do want to make sure and tell this committee, wow, you have set the bar high on this inaugural induction. What an awesome turnout, what an awesome meal, what a great graphics and everything that has gone on all summer long, let alone tonight. and you guys deserve a lot. You said you wanted some feedback. I don't know how you can improve. This is really awesome. I am very honored to be here and getting this with Marla. It wouldn't be the same because, as you can tell from the pictures, there we were side by side a lot. A lot. Such a good friend to have. Thank you.
Our next introduction is a state champion girls team. The 1989 girls track team stood as alone team champions when the dust settled in Wichita. Welcoming the 89 team to the Hall of Fame is Rick Keltner.
Anyway, Coach Brooks told me 5 minutes when I came up here, and you know better than that, Matt. But anyway, it is my honor to get to introduce the 1989 first state championship girls team from Hayes High School. When Kirk called me and asked me if I would do this, I said, don't be crazy, ask somebody else to do it, because not that I wasn't honored, but it was kind of deal. I coached boys pole vaulters in 1989. No girl pole vaulters. They didn't have the event then. They started the pole vault in 2000, and we had a girl from Hayes High School win it, but we hadn't started it then. So I thought I'd have somebody else do it, and I'd be honored, but it should be somebody else. And then I looked at and Kirk said, well, we need you to do it. So I said, I wouldn't know why he asked me. It's because, unfortunately, the guys that were my mentors, some of them have passed away. And so I was very fortunate to be on the coaching staff that was all-star. And 2 of them will be in the Hall of Fame tonight before you go home. But Coach Maska, Kirk's dad, Jim Maska, was a great mentor to me. I was a young coach in 1989. Time does fly. And he was a great mentor. He coached on our basketball staff. He was a guy I would talk to for advice. He was a guy who did not count his chickens before they hatched. When we went to 1989, I talked to him about the state track meet, and he never said, oh, we're going to win it, or we should win it. But he was the kind of guy that figured it to the point what our chances were. So I was proud to have him for a role model. Another coach that I wish could be with us tonight was Coach Bob Kuhn. Once again, what an inspirational man. And he was a great throws coach and just a guy that, what a sense of humor. Those guys are telling jokes and telling track stories right now. I'm not sure they believe that, but he would have been a great representative here tonight. And then Terry Sargent just mentioned Coach Mitchell. What a mentor. He was a great mentor to me. He was the calm guy. Terry was the calm guy. And he kind of was good at calming guys like me down and just being smart and telling me to be smart and those kind of things. So Coach Mitchell's not here. And then the last guy had a little salt in his veins, but Coach Cross. You guys know Tom Cross. It was only black and white with Coach Cross. And Coach Cross, I think, was ahead of his time for some of the Olympic lifting and things like that, but I learned a lot from Coach Cross, and he's another guy I wish could be with us here tonight. Coach Channel is in Kansas City, and what a gentleman, and another guy that was an assistant coach in basketball with me, but a guy that I wish could be here, but he's had some health issues. He's doing okay, but he couldn't make it tonight, so I wanted to mention those guys. And then Coach Watts, come down. I know you're coming down in a minute. Anyway, Coach Watts, come here for a second. Coach Watts. Coach Watts and I were the young guys on the coaching staff back then. We're not now the coach, we're the older guys, aren't we? But I wanted to tell this story, and I mean this with all due respect. Coach called me not too long ago and said, hey, you remember I coached pole vaulters, and I coached his son Marcus. And he said, do you remember did Marcus win 1 or 2 state championships in the pole vault? That's a fair question. A guy that coached pole vault should remember that, am I right? And I said, it's been long enough. I said, man, I don't remember. I'm going to have to look it up. So we researched it. And when I hung up the phone, I told Paul, I said, Paul, I feel like a dope. I couldn't remember, if he won 2. And I thought, but wait, Mark's his dad. So Mark, we both got rolled together, brother. We both had a senior moment on that day. But Mark and I coached basketball together. We've been around each other a long time. I love this guy, and I'm proud to be one of the remaining staff members with you, man. And we'll talk more about Mark later, and we'll get you back down here, but I need to get to the team. Now, coaches can only do so much. It's all about the student athletes, and we had some wonderful girls on this team. I do want to briefly grab out of the newspaper some things just to kind of take you back a little bit on what the newspaper said about the championship team. It said, depth can pay off at the state track meet. Just ask the Hayes High girls track team. The Indians won only 2 gold medals, compliments of hurdler Denise Brungart, but the team ran away with the 5A crown at Saturday's Kansas State High School meet. Hayes racked up 61 points, and they beat Shawnee Mission Miege, who had 48 points, which is a pretty decisive victory. That is decisive. Clap for that. You can clap for that. And then what Coach Maska said is, I wouldn't have bet on it coming out that way, but things fell in place for us. We've got some good kids, but other than Brungart, we don't have a lot of great quality, but it all turns out they all did their thing and contributed, and we were able to do it. Mentioned in the article, much of the credit went to Brungart. She had come off a knee injury, and then she transferred over from TMP after a knee injury. She had some knee injuries, and she basically competed in her first and last state meet at this meet, and when she won her 300 hurdles and the 100 hurdles, 2 gold medals. Hayes finished second in the 400-meter relay. The 3,200-meter relay took 6th. Nikki Brenzikoffer, who will be down here in a minute, chipped in her share by taking 3rd in both the 100 and 200-meter dashes for a total of 12 points. Faith Lockman, who's here tonight, collected 6 points for the team in the discus when she took 3rd. Jill Pywell, who's supposed to be here tonight, I don't know if she made it, but her son got married last night, so if you're going to miss, that might be an excuse. And she took 4th in the high jump. And Buffy Piper placed 6th. Other standouts were Melissa Oakley, Tammy Rulison, to mention a few, Sarah Flood, Gretchen Ellis got 2nd in the long jump. So I did want to mention them. I also wanted to mention a guy that I loved. Jared Thurston was a guy that ran the hurdles and got 5th, and he passed away this year, but Jared was a guy that hurdled with passion and was a great kid. So I did want to mention them, and then I'm going to bring the girls down and the ladies to try to do this thing right. I've got some biographical information on the ladies, but what I'm going to do is call you down here, and I'll maybe say some things about your biography, but I want to give you a second to, or a minute or two to tell people. I know Nikki had a story about Coach Maska that I wanted to share with you guys, and the players, the athletes should talk to you. So, first one up, Denise Steenstrup, Denise Brungart. Come on down, Denise. Okay, I've got this information I want to share with you. It's from the Wichita State Hall of Fame. Denise ran at Wichita State. Denise Brungart Steenstrup, one of the premier track and field athletes at Wichita State, was an NCAA Outdoor All-American in the heptathlon in 1993 when she placed 6th at the NCAA Championships in New Orleans, Louisiana. She also established the WSU indoor record in the pentathlon in 1993 with 3,826 points, and originally set the 1992 Gateway Collegiate Athletic Conference record in the pentathlon with 3,689 points. She was also the Missouri Valley Conference Indoor Athlete of the Year. She won the Kansas Relays in the heptathlon, 15th at the Olympic Trials in the heptathlon in 1996. At the time of her induction, she owned the top 2 shocker marks in the heptathlon. She's earned numerous All-Valley titles and honors. Now, I want to tell you guys that I didn't coach girls pole vault because it wasn't girls pole vault. And I worried that the girls might not even remember me because I didn't coach them individual events. But you would have known me, Denise Brungart, because I would have been recruiting your tail to come pole vault. But anyway, give Denise a hand, please.
I'll just say one quick story of, when you're fast, when you're in 8th grade basketball, Coach Earl Brungart, and I believe my dad kept together in 8th grade basketball and made sure I never had a date ever. Because we used to do this drill called 525s. You had to run that back and forth in 25 seconds. And sometimes we had to practice with the boys. And I remember Coach Brungart always saying, if Denise beats the boys, girls are done running. And every time the girls were like, yes! And we never ran another 525 if we had to compete with the boys.
Denise mentioned her dad, Mel. I told Denise when we talked on the phone, I said that one of the joys of coaching her on the pole vault would have been having Mel hang out at the pole vault pit. That would have been a good time. Okay, the next one on the list here, and And I gotta make sure she says something to you guys, but Nikki Brenzikoff, come on down, Nikki. She's got so many accolades here. All-around student athlete. She was outstanding female athlete in 1990 at Hayes High School. Most outstanding citizenship. Most spirited award in volleyball. Nikki played volleyball also. Western Athletic Conference All-League in volleyball. She placed third in the state in the 100 and 200. And one thing I remember about Nikki is she had a passion for running. Nikki, you're also another girl that I would have handed a pole to. But she, wonderful teammate. Have so many accolades on here. But I wanted Nikki told me a Coach Maska story. Please share that with me. Give Nikki a hand, please.
Fun story about state track meet, 89, 200-yard dash. Hamstrings were tightened up from all of the prelims that you have to run and all the four events. And I was getting ready to get in the blocks in the 200, and Denise came up to me, which she normally didn't. With blocks would get your teammates' clothes and stuff, and she said, "Coaches didn't want me to tell you or know that you need to get third or better for us to win state." And I just remember saying, "Seriously?" And it was, I had to get in the blocks, and I didn't have time to think, and it was a real close race, and I leaned a little bit further, and they stopped the show and had to do a review of the finish, and I was in lane 5, and literally my nose won the race, and it was a 1/100th of a second win over Bueller. Coach, when they announced it, that I ended up taking third, I'll never forget Coach Maska saying, or he had his clipboard like he always did with all the stats, and he actually jumped in the air and put one knee up in the air. So I remember that vividly and how happy all of us were. And Coach Maska was dear to my heart, and I was so lucky that my husband actually got to meet him. We invited him to our wedding, and he showed up in Manhattan. We were both K-Staters, and Coach Maska showed up to our wedding and surprised us. So it was pretty special, and the coaches rocked, and we were good because the coaches really supported us. And Coach Maska actually, I had a record in the 40-yard dash in junior high, or the middle school they call it, and middle school. And he recruited me then and saying, "You're going to be on the track team, and you're going to be in my car at the for the driver's ed," to make sure that I was in the track. And so I had a lot of fun, a lot of great memories. There's a lot of the teammates that couldn't be here and really wanted to be. So I wanted to thank you. This is quite an honor, as you'll hear from the others too. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Ladies, I'll have you back down here for a picture in a minute when we're done. As Nikki spoke there, it kind of reminded me last night, Coach Teeter and Coach Am Ryan and Coach Michaelis and I were talking, and it's really, the wins and losses are fine, but it just comes down to the love and teammate stuff. And just hearing these guys talk, you can tell that they value their time. And I'm so glad, Nikki, you mentioned Coach Maska's jump. I liked that part of that story. Okay, next up for us, and I don't know if she showed up. She sent her stuff in, but I haven't seen her tonight unless she's walked in. Her son did get married last night. Is Jill Plywell here? Jill Plywell. Is she here? No? Well, we will move on. But Jill Plywell, high jumped and scored points for the state track meet and valuable member of the team. Another person that sent their stuff in, but I think didn't make it tonight was Carrie Nagley. Did Carrie Nagley show up? I don't think Carrie Nagley. Carrie Nagley was a hurler. We had several hurlers that were very talented on that team. Now, somebody that did show up, and I'm glad she did, is Angela Ashton. Angela, come on down here, please. Angela obviously represented us at state track. Got your fondest high school memory here, Angela. Homecoming 1990, and then I thought this was interesting, wearing togas to the formal spring dance. So anyway, Angela, it's your mic. Please give her a hand.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for so
so much for the honor. My fondest memory of track is I moved to Hayes in sophomore year, in the middle of the year. I didn't know anybody, so I didn't go out for anything. Junior year, I said, I'm going to meet everyone, I'm going to get involved in everything, and track was one of those things. So I go to my first track training, and there's the whole group of the people who've been on the team for freshman and sophomore year. I didn't know who to talk to, what to do, so I met up with the other people who had never been on the track team, and we watched the other people stretch, and we watched them run out of the building and start down the path, and we said, well, what do we do? Do we follow them? You know, we didn't know what to do, so we ran over to the convenience store across the street and got Slurpees. And we sat behind the convenience store and drank our Slurpees and watched for them to come back. So as soon as they came back, we followed them back. My first track meet, however, got there, and I was put on the 2 mile. I thought, I haven't done any training. What am I going to do? So I just basically, not literally, but I stood as close to the first person ahead of me as possible, and I came in second. And so that's how I went from JV to varsity, and I started training after that and stayed as a track, ran distance until my early 40s. So that was a big lesson learned, and I was very happy to be on the team. So thank you again for the honor.
Okay, I haven't seen this lady yet, but it's Amy Kuhn. Amy Kuhn, are you here, Amy? Come on up here, Amy Kuhn. Come up here. I know you're Amy Bryant now. This is Bob Kuhn's daughter. Amy, I just found out you were here. I didn't mean to drop this on you, but let's give Amy a hand.
This is actually hilarious because my brother, Matt Kuhn, who's sitting over there, has been giving me a heap ton of crap about this ever since the '89 team was announced as an inductee, because I was a freshman that year. I am only here because my dad is an inductee, and I did not want to be recognized in any way for this because I don't even remember going out for track. I do know I was in track because my dad made me go out. I was a freshman, and I think Mark Watts may have coached me in javelin a little bit. Those are my memories of it, but I do remember all these other great girls who have been up here. They were amazing people, amazing leaders, and I am very happy for them.
I've got to ask now, Leah Claycamp, is Leah Claycamp here? She sent her stuff in. Leah Claycamp, apparently not here. Leah, come on, Leah. Leah, I remember you. I coached you in some traveling team basketball once.
Say that again?
I coached you in traveling team basketball once. I remember you. Hi, it's so good to see you.
So good to see you. Thank you so much.
Say something.
Okay.
Give Leah a hand.
Okay. I just wanted to say thanks so much for this honor, Coach Maska, the committee. Everything's amazing. It's so good to see so many familiar faces. We get to see Coach Keltner again. So many fond memories, academic, athletic, many plyometric box jumps and medicine ball activities with Coach Kuhn and Coach Watts. All helped to a third finish. For me personally that year, which I feel like it was first place because the 2 ladies that beat me, one went on to the Olympics, the first place person, and the second place person, she went, well, the first place person, she did go to KU, and then she was in the Olympics. Second place person, she played basketball at K-State, and then also went on to WNBA. So I feel like I got first, even though I got third. I'm so thankful to be a part of such a great team of women, and like everybody else said, just so many amazing leaders, and it takes us all, right? There's no I in team. So thank you again so much, you guys.
I think this is the last one, and I kind of saved Faith for last because I talked to her recently, having retired recently. We Paula and I met with Faith, and she got us straightened out financially on retirement. Now she works for the district. Her wonderful lady, and Faith was a discus and shot put thrower and got a lot of gold medals doing that. Faith Lockman, come on down, please.
I didn't expect to have to speak. This is a lot of fun. I'm honored. This is a great event. I think about the coaches. Coach Maska was my typing teacher, he was my driver's ed teacher, and he was my track coach. And I just remember him always smiling. He just was a happy guy, and he made track fun. Coach Kuhn, man, I miss that guy. He played a role in my life. He was a rock. He cared about kids. And, you know, I don't know if educators and coaches realize sometimes that kids go to school because of them, you know, on a given day. And Coach Watts as well. I was pretty good at shot put and discus. I could not get the hang of the javelin. He tried with me, but anyway, great memories. This is a great time. It's just an honor to be here, and thank you.
I think that's about 5 minutes right there. Anyway, I did want to say this. Joe Gator, I'm sorry, you caught me zoning off a while ago when you asked me the question about scoring, but Gene Ryder did score more points. He was always in all the records, and I did keep track of that stuff at Hayes High School. It was a lucky break for me in my life that I got to be at Hayes High School for 34 years, and get to be part of this team was certainly one of those things. So thank you very much. Have a good evening.
I hate to do this to all the track kids, but the track inductees, but you got to come back up now so you can get your certificate and your picture. You're tracksters. This should be normal. Like, you should be okay with it.
Thank you. I'd also like to thank all those on the Hayes High School Hall of Fame Committee, and Kirk especially for heading that, and for forming this Hall of Fame to honor past outstanding athletes, teams, coaches, administrators. You guys have put a lot of time in. This is long overdue. When the list came out for this first class, I was very excited to see that Tamara Munch was on that list. And then about 2 weeks later, I get a message saying that she would like for me to be her presenter. That's quite an honor to be able to do this. Tamara started her high school career kind of in the shadow of her sister, Mandy. Mandy had a great 4 years of high school golf before her and went on and played golf at KU. So she was kind of in the shadow of that. But she took care of that on her very first tournament, the fall of '96, by winning her very first tournament as a freshman. In her high school career, you get a chance to play in 10 tournaments. 8 regular season tournaments, 1 regional, and a state, but you're not always guaranteed to be in the state tournament. So individually, during Tamara's 4 years of high school, she was in the top 10 medalists, 38 out of 39 tournaments. Okay, so that's a medal. You know how those kids used to put their medals on their letter jackets? That would have weighed a lot. She was in the top 3 in 33 out of those 39 tournaments. And she was the individual champion in 22 of the 39 tournaments. She won the league championship 3 of her 4 years and won a regional individual championship her senior season. At the state championship, she had a 21st place her freshman year. That's the only time she didn't medal. You had to be in the top 20 at state meet to be able to get a medal. Kind of fired her up, I think, because the next 3 years she went 3rd, 2nd. Actually, she went 3rd her junior year, 2nd her senior year, but her sophomore year she was the individual state champion. And when I talk about state championships in our class, we usually talk about 5A, and that's what we are right now. But back then, our girls had to compete against 5A and 6A schools at the state tournament. So we're talking about all the best golfers in Kansas City, Wichita, Topeka. So that's quite a career so far. And usually at the state tournament, you're going to have about 100 golfers. So she was able to have an unbelievable last 3 years of her career. Tamara's outstanding individual play had a big impact on the other players on her team. They all saw how hard she practiced, and it rubbed off on all the rest of them. Tamara was the first player to take her team to state all 4 years. Now remember, like I said, this was 5A and 6A. Her teams finished her freshman year 8th place, sophomore year 5th, junior year 6th, and her senior year, we won a state trophy by finishing in 3rd place. Now, if you were to look at it, it was just 5A schools instead of the 6A, we would have finished and we would have had 2 3rd place finishers, and her senior year, we would have been the 5A state champions. Tamara still holds many records at Hayes High. She has the 2nd, 3rd, and 9th best single season stroke average. She has the low sophomore and junior season stroke average. She holds the low career stroke average, 81.8. Those of you who play golf know that's pretty darn good. She holds the low 18-hole individual tournament round, 72 strokes. She is tied for the best 9-hole tournament round, which is 35, which was even par at Salina. And she has the low 9-hole season tournament average at 38 strokes. Usually we would play about 3 or 4 9-hole tournaments, and the rest were 18. What an outstanding career, high school golf career Tamara had. Tamara went on to have a very successful 4-year collegiate career at Middle Tennessee State. Tamara is married to Mike Akers, who is the North Texas State University women's golf head coach right now. And they have 2 boys, Eddie, who is 12, and Zach, who is 6. Tamara has been an elementary teacher for the last years, and this year she was not able to make it today because she's starting a new position, which is being head of technology at the whole elementary school. Tamara is currently the greatest female golfer in Hayes High history. Congratulations to Tamara Matchakers. You are a Hayes High School Athletic Hall of Famer. Are here tonight, Harvey and Cindy Munch. Would you please come forward to accept this award? I asked them earlier if they wanted to say anything, so I don't know if they've prepared themselves since that time.
Tammy wants to thank the Hall of Fame committee from the bottom of her heart. She really appreciates it. And we'd like to thank Coach Watch for the 8 years, for the 2 girls that he put a lot of time and anguish in, and getting a lot of bad mouth from one of them. And that's it. And she's really proud. And I want to tell a joke about Joe Jeter. The daughter wins the state championship, shoots 74. Joe's daughter Emily's on our team too. He walks up to Tam, and we got beat by 4 or 5 strokes. And he walked up to Tam and he says, "Couldn't you play any better?" So we want to thank you very much.
It was mentioned a little earlier that the way that the nominations will happen in the future is there will be a form available for anybody to nominate future Hall of Fame inductees. Being on the committee was tough this year to figure out who goes into the first classes, and what I find remarkable is some of the people who have done the introductions and some of the people who are getting ready to do the introductions are likely Hall of Famers themselves and didn't find themselves in this first class, to give an idea of how elite that this class is. Next up, Frank Leo will step to the microphone to help induct one of the best baseball players that has ever put on a Hayes High batting helmet, Jeff Beaker.
First of all, great job in putting on the first inaugural. It's tremendous to see this crowd and everybody here tonight. Also, congratulations to all the inductees. You're going to be the only ones that can be labeled, I was in the first class, so congratulations to all of you. Okay, let me tell you a few stories about the next guy that's coming up here. He was only a one-sport guy, but if Hayes High had a fishing team, I would have had a hard time keeping him off the lake. Some nights he'd say, "Coach, can we cut this a little short? I think the fish are biting." So, Jeff was a tremendous player for us, but also he loved to fish. Need to tell you a few other stories before I talk about Jeff's accomplishments. One of them, you know, Jeff had a power arm, but he also loved to hit. And there was a batting practice we had one afternoon at the current Hayes High field, and Coach Harper's pitching, and Jeff whiffs on the first BP pitch. Well, that didn't go over too well. You know, if you know Jeff, he's a competitor. He proceeded to hit the next 15 balls out of Hayes High. That's the kind of power he had. But there's still a better story about his power. We had to play our home games at Larks Park because we didn't have lights yet at Hayes High. Well, if any of you are familiar with Larks Park back in that era, back in the late 1900s, early 2000s, Larks Park had a double fence that went from left center field and stretched around the right center field. But in straightaway center field, there was about a 30-foot wall that we called the Green Monster, 405 feet away from home plate. We're playing the second game of a doubleheader. It's getting a little misty outside. Jeff steps to the plate and crushes one off the bat, a line drive that keeps going and going and going. It goes over the 30-foot wall in straightaway center field over that Green Monster. You know, today we have metrics that measure that stuff. Stuff like exit velocity, launch angle, how far you hit the ball. Stuff that I don't give a hoot about. But I guarantee if they measured that shot off of Jeff, it'd be right up there with all the big boys. So, kid with tremendous power. All right, so let me tell you about Jeff Beaker as a baseball player. Jeff had a power arm, and he was a very good pitcher. He hit for high average and with power. And then came his speed. Yeah, Jeff, you can laugh a little bit. Jeff was not going to win very many foot races, nor was he going to steal very many bases. But that did not matter, because most of the time, Jeff was rounding first, headed for second, headed for third, and headed to home. He didn't like stopping at first base, so we didn't have to worry about the speed game with Jeff. Jeff's big 6'4" frame generated some tremendous power. I know if any of you played golf with him, you saw that golf swing and how far he hits a golf ball. Well, when you consider that the baseball field is out of high school, and they wanted Jeff to just be a pitcher. And I knew how much Jeff loved to hit. And I wasn't sure how that was going to last. Well, Jeff did come back home from Nebraska, and thankfully for us, Fort Hays, he had a tremendous career there. But let me talk about Jeff's high school career first. While an Indian, Jeff earned the following awards. He was a two-time first-team All-State 5A player. And for Western Kansas, that doesn't happen very often. He was a two-time All-WAC player, and probably would have been a Player of the Year, but the WAC did not adopt that Player of the Year award until a few years later. Unfortunately, sorry, Jeff, but you would have been a guy. Jeff played in the KABC Senior All-Star Game after completing his senior year. In 1999, as an Indian, Jeff hit a phenomenal .500. He had a career batting average of .465, which puts him second on the list of career batting averages. He hit 10 career home runs, which is not going to sound like much when I talk about his Fort Hays statistics, but that's not easy to do, particularly playing at Larks Park with the double wall in the outfield. Jeff probably would have had many, many more. But one night he decided to try and see if he could hit it over the green monster, and so he did. Moving on to Jeff's Fort Hays Awards, and it was a blessing that Fort Hays got because he became one of the greatest hitters in Fort Hays history. So let's start with those. He was a two-time NCAA Division II first-team All-American. Pretty good honor for somebody from Western Kansas. He was the RMAC Player of the Year. That's the old Rocky Mountain Conference before they decided to join the MIAA. In 2005, the Sultan Swat back there led all D2 schools across the country in home runs with 23. He went on to hit 85 home runs in his career, and that was a 3-year career. He had a career batting average at Fort Hays of .421, and is a member of the Tiger Hall of Fame, in which he was inducted in 2015. After completing his career at Fort Hays, Jeff was drafted in the player draft. He was the 5th Indian baseball player to do so. He was drafted in the 2005 draft to the Oakland Athletics in the 15th round. Again, a pretty good accomplishment for a kid from Western Kansas. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to introduce the power-hitting, fleet-footed Jeff the Beak Beaker.
Slow comments, I'll make a short one, have to move the mic up. So I just want to thank Coach Leo for the wonderful introduction. And congratulate all the other inductees. What a wonderful night tonight. A big thank you goes out to the committee that made this night possible and all the hard work they put in behind the scenes to make this night special. The committee started something tonight that will continue to recognize student athletes well into the future. We're just the first class in, but there's going to be many more, and I know there's a lot of people out there that are probably more, they deserve it as much or more than we do at this point. We've got some tremendous athletes. It was a great ride through Hays High. I loved every minute of it. I'm pleased to be receiving such a prestigious honor. I want to start out by saying thank you to the entire Indian family. Indian athletes are blessed to have so many loyal supporters, and I see them all here tonight. I was blessed to play for some tremendous coaches and numerous teammates, really. I mean, we talk about individual accolades, but we played team sports, and those memories that we made and those lifelong friendships mean way more to me than anything that I did by myself. So I've made some friends that I have along the way. They'll be friends forever. I still remember it was my 8th grade year, and my mom smirks because she knows what's coming right now. So I took up a fond love of golf. I love golf now. I play a lot of golf. But I told her, I said, I think in high school I'm going to try golf. And she looked at me with just astonishment. And she said, Bud, all those years of traveling and all that money, not a chance, and you know what, that you're going to play golf in high school. So, Mom, thanks for keeping me on the right path. So, my fondest memories of high school were because of baseball. The road trips and the friendships made me who I am today, really. I was blessed to learn the game from tremendous baseball minds. Coach Leo, we'll be doing this again for him someday. We all know that. Coach Harper, Coach Bellinger, Coach Jordan, tremendous guys. They turned me not only into a baseball player, but helped me mold me into who I am today. During my time playing baseball at Hays High, obviously we were a part of some great teams. We went to state multiple times. My junior year, we actually played for a state championship game. Unfortunately, we came up short, but honestly, I would trade all my individual accolades for a state championship because as a team sport, that's what we all want. We want to come home as a winner. And unfortunately, we took second. It's great, but I still would trade anything I have at this point in time for that state championship. So, I'm going to tell one quick story because everybody deserves a story. So, my favorite trip of the year was every year we went to Arizona during spring break, right? We went as a team. It was so much fun. My first trip was my sophomore year. When we got to Arizona, we slept in the wrestling room of the local high school. You know, to save some money. We are Ellis County, so we save as much money as possible. So my folks had given me just enough money to get me through the trip, you know, afford my meals, take me to the baseball game. Well, on the first night of the road trip, I managed to lose all my money. And I had no more funds for the entire week. So I'm not going to get into detail about how I lost my money. But I'll tell you, we kept ourselves entertained that night in the wrestling room by playing cards. And I am not a very good card player or a gambler, I learned on that trip. So it was a good thing we prepaid for most of our stuff, and I was still able to participate in the trip. But I can tell you that is when my dislike for convenience store hot dogs really started, because that's all I could afford on borrowed money. So as we start the trip home, I had to figure out how I was going to tell Mom that I lost all my money gambling in a wrestling room. So we're on our way home, and at the last convenience store in Arizona, I figure it's now or never that I buy Mom a gift to try to, butter her up before I tell her what actually happened. So I buy a gift, obviously borrowed money from Coach Leo. So I get home, and the convenience store didn't have many options that night. We're late at night, there's not much there. And the only thing I could find is a craft project that looks like a 3-year-old crafted it. I mean, it is awful. But I go with it because, I've got $5 and that's all I can afford at this point. So I gave Mom the figurine when I get home, and I'm trying to sell it like, this is awesome. I really appreciate it, Mom. Thanks for everything you do for me. And she just looks at me with just kind of a combination of excitement and some confusion. And she was excited because I thought about her, My son, we went on a trip and he thought about me, and that's awfully nice of him. The confusion was, what in the world did he buy me? So at that point, after judging the room, filling it out, I decided I'd just hold that truth to myself for a few more years. So it took me a long time. Eventually I came through, and I told her I lost all my money in the wrestling room playing cards. So I learned a lesson. Sometimes you think it's a sure thing, and it's not always a sure thing. Life's what you make of it, but you never know what tomorrow brings, so enjoy today. So I just want to finish by saying thank you. Thanks to the committee. It's been a wonderful night. Everything's been absolutely perfect. Congratulations to all the other inductees. Thanks again.
I've been fortunate enough to get to know the Beaker family over the last few years, and I asked Jeff about his baseball playing career, and he said his philosophy was, if you hit it hard enough, you don't have to run fast. It seemed to work out. Next up on our list, Marcus Watts spread his talents across multiple sports at Hayes High, and as such, he is now a member of this inaugural class. Please welcome Kent Teeter to introduce Marcus.
It is. What a great night, and kudos for everybody that put this on. It's wonderful, and it's outstanding, and a lot of people will remember this for a long time. It is an honor to be a coach. As coaches we've talked, it's been an honor to be able to coach the type of kids that we've had to. So being a Hayes High coach for several years, we were blessed to have athletes that we have come through here. And so included that is Marcus Watts. And when Marcus called me and asked me to present him, it was, oh, heck yeah. My son was even more excited about it as well. But Marcus was, a multi-athlete, very talented. I don't believe there was a sport that we offered that he couldn't have excelled very well at, and that we offered at Hayes High. He had been awesome in any sport that we did. He was the outstanding athlete for Hayes High as well. Marcus made a big name for him in high school. Coaches talked about him all the time. When we would go to coaches' clinics, they wanted to talk about Marcus. But he also made a bigger name for himself in college as well. So he really did that later on after high school. Marcus was very intelligent, smart player, extreme competitor. He gave everything he got. His body, he would put his body through anything. He was a confident player, but probably one of the biggest words I'd say, he was just a huge playmaker. And so, and I've got a couple stories later on for that. I've coached at several different schools now, and everywhere I've gone, they ask about Marcus Watts. I did go to Great Bend for a year. They ask about him, but they still don't like him very well, and that was all right. But they really respected him. I
I took a teaching job. My high school basketball coach was the AD out of Goodland, so I went out there. And Donald Raymer played with him, and Goodland had, tons of K-State fans, and so we talked about Marcus Watts and Goodland. Then I go to Holcomb, and an assistant coach of mine, Lucas Sullivan, goes, "You coach Marcus Watts at Hayes High?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, I was the guy right in front of him at graduation." And I said, "Well, I went to your graduation. I didn't know you, but," and, a lot of people in Holcomb knew about Marcus Watts. Some of his accolades, and some people may not remember this, he did play golf one year. He lettered as a golfer, and then their team, they were state qualifiers in golf in 1999. In football, he was a 3-year letter winner. His senior year, he was first team all-conference as a quarterback, free safety, and as a special teams player of the year. Not very many people get those 3 awards, and so that was really cool for him at the all-conference meeting. He was on that team. Liberal had won about 11 years in a row, so he was excited, and talking with him, it's one of his memorable games, and I know I'll never forget it, but first time we'd beat Liberal in 11 years since 1990, his senior year. At the state level, he was All-State from the Wichita Eagle, the Topeka Capital, and also the Kansas Football Coaches Association. He was nominated and played in the Shrine Bowl. And if I remember right, he played on both offense and defense, and not very many people do that in the Shrine Bowl. In basketball, he was a 3-year letter winner. They were conference champions, WAC champions in 2001. He was first team all-conference in 2001, 2002. School record holder for a long time, about 20 years, I think, for career assists. And so that was pretty cool there. In the Hayes City Shootout Champions, they were champions in 2001. He was all-tournament team in 2000 and 2001. And then he was most inspirational player, which is a big deal at that Hayes City Shootout in 2000 and 2001 as well. At the Orange and Black Classic, they were champions in 2001, and he was the most valuable player in 2001 and on the all-tournament team as well in 2001. In track, and yes, you heard Coach Watts and Coach Keltner talking about pole vault. I did get a text not too long ago and said, "How many times did Marcus win state pole vault?" I knew, it was 2. And so he lettered the 3 years that he did track. He was all 3 years, he qualified in all 4 events that he participated in. He was a 10-time state medalist. He helped our state track team. They gave team trophies for the top 3 each year, and he was a part of all 3 years that he did track. Our team brought home state trophies. State runners-up in 2002 and 3rd place in 2000 and 2001. In his state medals, he was, we mentioned he was a 2-time state champion in pole vault. He still holds the school record for that. 2-time state runner-up in the 4x4, 3rd place in the 400, and he ran 49, 48, split in the relays. Long jump, he was a state medalist, got 2nd and 3rd in 2 years of there, his junior and senior year. And he was a 23-foot long jumper, 23-foot long jumper, 15-foot, 7.5-foot pole vaulter, ran the 400 and 49 and 48, and so I think that's pretty impressive there. And like I said, he went on to K-State, and I remember the recruiters coming in and talking to him. I said, "The guy's an athlete. He can get 15 feet in the air, upside down. He can long jump 23 feet. He runs. He's a starter on the basketball team. He made all the kind of plays in football." So, and I remember the coaches coming in and talking to him, and so Del Miller from K-State just finally said, "We just got to get Marcus here somehow." So they gave him a gray shirt, which is tough to do, and that shows the adversity that he went through a little bit. Perseverance, because on a gray shirt, you don't start your scholarship until January. So he was there for a semester. Then he was on scholarship at K-State for the next 5 years. And so at K-State, they were Big 12 champions in 2003. I know Marcus was listed in the All-American ranks when he was at K-State. For K-State, they gave out a few awards, but I know he was the special teams MVP at K-State in 2004 and 2005. And then he was also the defensive MVP in 2005. And so Marcus had a lot of accolades. So some of the stories, Marcus hurt his MCL. his junior year, so he was playing with a torn MCL, and we're in the Great Bend game. He's quarterbacking, and he hobbles off the field. He goes, "Coach, I can't cut lateral, but I can run fine straight ahead. I can backpedal and run fine straight ahead." I said, "Okay." So Jay Stewart goes in at quarterback, and I said, "All right, you said you can run straight ahead." We put him in at receiver. He caught a touchdown pass that very next play. So we put him down the field. So that was the kind of playmaker that he was. In Goodland, and I later on went and coached at Goodland, but it was the opening game of his senior year. And in the warm-ups, it was fun to warm up against Goodland because the school was really close to the back of the end zone. So kickers in their warm-ups would always try to break out a glass or hit the school. He actually kicked the ball on top of the school. And then I found out later on that there's only been 2 kickers do that, one from Hayes High and one from TMP. So that's kind of cool. But later on when I went to Goodland, they were working on the roof, and I said, "Hey, if you find the football up there, I want it." It was there. It was really faded on one side, but it was still there. And so when we started that Goodland game, Coach Amrine, and Coach Amrine's back here, and if you guys Coach Amrine, he can get fired up, but he was our special teams guy, and he's panting around, he's getting ready to go. We're going to receive the ball. So the kick return team is out there, and he gets the team together, and he says, "Hey, if we return this to the house, I'll buy you all prime rib." So I mean, that's a pretty good deal. And so, you're going to find out that we did return it to the house. I don't think the head coach got prime rib that night, so I think I'm still looking for it, but all the players did. But I asked him, I said, "What are the exact quotes?" Because Coach Amrine's kind of funny, but he said, "Let's light the powder keg on this season and run this one back." And if you know Coach Amrine, he's animated when he's doing this. But guess what happened? We ran the opening kickoff to start our season, and Marcus ran that back for the kick return. But in that game, he helped score 5 different ways. So he had the kickoff return for a touchdown. He ran the ball in for a touchdown from the quarterback position. He threw a touchdown pass. He also was our PAT kicker, so he kicked the PATs after that, and he kicked the field goal. So helped score in 5 different ways. Liberal. We hadn't beaten Liberal in 11 years. And so that was one of the marquee games on our season that year. And it was big. But it all started off, we get about halfway to Liberal and the bus breaks down. And so we called Dodge up. We finally get to the game. They're only going to give us, we usually take about an hour and a half to warm up. They give us 45 minutes to warm up. And so during the warm-up, we're out there, we're like, "Hey, get the stuff ready, get the kicking tees out there, get the balls that time, hurry up, let's get dressed," and all that. Well, it just so happened there's a piece of paper lying around, and so it's against the school, and we pick it up. All coaches make scouting reports. And in the scouting reports, they're trying to get their team fired up, but it talks about Marcus. And it even mentions Marcus Watts' family a little bit. And so we flipped the coin on it. We read it to him in the pregame or right before we went back out. And it gave us a little bit of motivation. But he was only saying that because he knew Marcus was a good player and we had a good team and that they were trying to get their team motivated to beat us. But anyway, the playmaker that he was, the very first score of the game, it was a Marcus Watts touchdown run. Second score of the game, Marcus Watts threw a pass to Jay Stewart. I think they scored at the end of the second quarter, but in the third quarter, they were on a pretty good little drive. Marcus Watts interception. So you can tell Marcus came to this game ready to play. Third score, Marcus Watts touchdown run. Into the third quarter, probably a couple of the biggest plays of the game. With the third quarter running out, Coach Amrine was our special teams. I didn't tell him this. There was not much time left. It was third down. So, you got one more down to try to make first down. But we'd received a penalty and we had lost yards on another play. So first and second down, we kind of lost yards. So we're punting from close to our end zone. And so on third down, Coach Amrine comes up, "Hey, there's not much time. Do you want to call a timeout?" And I go, "No." He goes, "Well, Coach, I don't want the clock to run out and we have to kick against wind." I said, "No, we're okay." I've only done this in my 28 years of being a head coach. I've only done this one time, but it worked. We did a quick kick on third down, which, I'm probably stupid for that, but that's not the only time I've been stupid. But he ended up kicking a 71-yard punt, so it really flipped the field position in that game. In the fourth quarter, Marcus, I don't know if he remembers this or not, he's our punter. We don't have great field position, maybe the 30-yard line, but we're punting against the wind. But in the fourth quarter, they blocked the punt. The guy dives, he blocks punt, Marcus goes back, he grabs the ball, tucks it for a run, and I'm thinking there's no way he's going to get a first down. And talking to Marcus later, he was either trying to make the decision when he was running to run people over or split them or do something, but he makes a miraculous play, and I remember the play. His body was about this height, airborne and flat. He dove for the first down, stretched out, and got the ball across the first down marker. So that was a big play for us. But one of the biggest plays was on Liberal's last drive. They were facing a 4th and short, and I hope Marcus remembers this. But they ran misdirection plays, a quarterback boot, and you know, most of our team went, you know, with fake, and the quarterback ran from Liberal the other way, and it was basically a one-on-one tackle. And in football, you know, that's the hardest tackle to make in football. But it was 4th and short. They didn't get the first down. Marcus won that play, and so that was a big game for Marcus Watts and for our team as well. Then the last little story I got, and this just shows you a little bit about the character of Marcus as well. My son, who idolized Marcus, he wore number 2 because that's what number Marcus was in college. But we got to go watch a few games and take pictures with some of the players and that type of thing. But we go to the Missouri game, and Marcus' junior year. And it was Coach Snyder's last game. And if you know anything about Coach Snyder, you know, he kind of kept to himself, didn't talk about a lot of players. And you know, after the games, he kept things quiet and that type of thing. But Marcus gets hurt and dislocates his hip, you know. And so I don't remember exactly in the game. It was right before half, but I remember we're like, oh my God, you know, the crowd is chanting, Marcus Watts. It was kind of surreal, but you know, we were just devastated. And they took him to the hospital, which is not too far from the stadium over there, and we're debating, my family's over there, and we're debating on whether we should go see him after the game and that type of thing. So we're like, yeah, let's go over there. And I'm thinking, you know, oh my God. You know, we walk in the room, he's eating, they've already got his hip in place, he's got his leg up, he goes, hey, what's up? You know, and it's like, oh my gosh. But it was amazing to see him go through that and how he handled that, and he made us feel better. But if you know anything about K-State football and Coach Snyder, he didn't talk about injuries, he didn't talk about a lot of things. But the one thing, and I read it in the newspaper article afterwards, but Marcus Watts, Coach Snyder comes out there, he's talking to him, and his quote in the paper said this, "You will get through this and we will be okay." Coach Snyder says that to Marcus. Marcus replies back, Coach, I so much wanted to make plays for you. I wanted to make plays for you. And if you know Coach Snyder, he doesn't talk about players in that type of situation, but he was so moved by that and that type of relationship that those two had. But it shows you the type of character that Marcus had on that as well. So, multi-talented, outstanding athlete, could have done any sport, been really huge, successful in high school and college and anything, Marcus Watts.
Thanks, Coach Cheater. There's a lot of stories, some stuff I didn't remember. And they asked me about this pole vault thing too, and I didn't even know. Okay? So I thought the Liberal guys, because the Liberal guys always had some really good pole vaulters, especially my sophomore year, they went first and second. So I thought one of them was still there my junior year, and there was no way I was going to beat him, because he was a 16-foot pole vaulter. So anyway, I want to thank the Hall of Fame committee for doing this. I knew nothing about it, and my uncle spearheaded it. So I got a call from Josh Dreher, and he's like, hey, and I'm like, hey. I don't ever talk to Josh, and he's like, you're inducted to Hall of Fame. I was like, I didn't know anything about it. So thank you to the committee for selecting me in this inaugural class. Thank you, Mom and Dad. You guys did everything that I needed to be successful in sports. You would take me to every game. I was fortunate enough to have my dad, who was a coach, so I was at every single high school game. I saw a lot of great athletes come through Hayes High in the 80s and 90s, and it helped me, honestly, because I was around it so much. So thank you guys. To my sisters, Nicole, who is no longer here with us today, but who was my biggest supporter, and to Kylie, I promise you this is the last athletic event you'll be drugged to. Okay? To my boys, Grayson and Beckham, you're the light of my life. I'm looking forward to you guys growing up and playing sports. It's fun to go to. They're not football players, and I'm okay with it. So I just want them to be happy and successful in whatever they do.
My grandparents, they're all gone. My Dr. Harry Watts and Valerie, Jim and Kay Maska, they were my biggest supporters. They were at every single game, no matter where it was, what time it was. They were always there and supporting. And to the rest of my family that is here, I think we take up about 4 or 5 tables in this room today. Thank you guys for coming tonight. To me, this is an honor. It's a big honor. Although it is an individual honor, I could not have done this without the teammates that I had. Obviously, track was really the only individual sport that I played, even though for the team side of it. But every other sport was a team sport, and everybody else contributed to my success and our team's success. He took the memorable moment of the Liberal, and I'll touch base on that a little bit. I mean, it was very personal, the letter. It attacked my mom, it attacked me personally, and that was dumb. I'm glad we found the letter because they awakened a bear. There was no way that I was going to lose that game. I was going to do everything in my power to make sure that we won that game. And I remember the punt block. It was Jace's fault because he didn't block the guy. Thank God he didn't block it because we got a first down and ran some more time off the clock. It was a dive, and I got flipped, and I cramped up afterwards, so I couldn't go back in and play quarterback. So Jace had to go in and play quarterback, so I was cramping up both legs because I hadn't come off the field the whole game. So, again, I want to thank you all for being here. And congrats to all the other inductees. And lastly, thank Heather and her 2 girls. Came into my life 2 years ago, and it's been great. So I'm glad that they were able to be here and support me, even though they don't know a lot about my high school career. So thank you.
We spend so much of our time remembering past athletes and all that they accomplished, and the teams. But there's a support network that largely goes unnoticed. Among them are the next 3 inductees. We start with former athletic director Mike Carl, and to introduce Mike is Gerard Welbrock, a former voice of the Hayes High Indians.
I too, like everybody else, would like to congratulate the committee. This is awesome, long overdue, and you did a great job. It's going to be hard to follow this up because this has been phenomenal. Congratulations to all the Hall of Fame inductees, obviously well-deserved. I firsthand got to watch a lot of the feats. The rest of them I think I have read about or heard about from other people, so congratulations. And Ken, hearing you talk about that Liberal game, man, I got goosebumps. That was, and Marcus, that block punt dive for a first down may have been the best play I've ever seen. It was incredible. And I do remember a Tip Ben after I think I missed Sean Finn basket to force overtime in Great Bend on a great team. So there are many more for you, but congratulations to all the inductees. Well deserved. I'm here tonight to introduce Mike Carl, which I found something out about him I did not know. When he was in high school on Long Island, Calhoun High, at their Christmas basketball tournament, he outscored a guy named Julius Irving in their tournament game, 26 points for Mike Carl and 23 for the guy everybody knows as Dr. J. Now, I was a 76ers fan growing up. I wasn't a Bird or Celtics or Magic or the Lakers. I liked the Sixers. So, I mean, I've always respected you, but wow. You moved up and I didn't even know that. But and Mike has helped me out on the radio before, and occasionally he may hit a casino on the way to a game. I hear about the wins. I never hear when he loses. And I haven't heard how the slam dunk contest went with Dr. J at the tournament. But Mike was the athletic director when I moved back to Hayes in 1992, and obviously was a big part in me calling the games, getting me acquainted with all the coaches, and many of the names that have been talked about tonight I was able to know and work with, and what a great honor. Mike has also helped me out on radio broadcasts. When I first came to Hayes, I don't remember if I asked or if he volunteered or how that all worked, but we did road games on KOIS, so I was always on the road, so he, as the athletic director, could help out on the radio and did a great job. And if you know Mike, or maybe you've heard Mike, he gets a little excited sometimes, especially when his son Scott was playing. And our equipment had a little off-on switch. He doesn't even know this, but we'd get close to score and I'd turn it off because I knew he'd be. I don't do that anymore. He helps. I think it's pretty cool. But he helps me out still today, which usually means trips to Tahlequah, Oklahoma, and Jefferson City when Dustin can't make it. It's fitting that Mike goes into the Hall of Fame with Bob Kuhn. I know you're going to introduce him here in a little bit. When I think of my time as voice of the Indians, that Liberal game comes up. But I remember a trip to Las Vegas, New Mexico on a Friday night. Hayes High had a district game in Great Bend, and it was late October. Bob Kuhn was the assistant coach, Mike was the AD. We get in Mike's van, and we're hauling to Las Vegas, New Mexico through the night. And there was weather moving in. It's just a lot, mist, it stays warm, and we get to Clayton, New Mexico. We stop to get gas, get drinks, get snacks. And the convenience store guy working, we're asking about the weather. And he's, you ever driven this road before? And no. And he just kind of, oh, I wouldn't drive it tonight. So we kind of have a huddle. It's like, well, we're not going to make it. So Mike's driving, Bob Kuhn's in the passenger seat, and I'm in the middle, and Bob's looking for the white line. Mike's looking, I'm looking for barrels that are maybe blowing with this blizzard. But we get to, eventually, Las Vegas. The weather's beautiful. They go crash in Steve Webster's hotel room because he was doing the Fort Hays games. I go eat breakfast, go to the game, and that was kind of Mike. I mean, that was a fun trip, and I'll always remember that when I think of his time as athletic director at Hayes High. Obviously, the success, and a lot of the success we're celebrating tonight, it takes people behind the scenes, and Mike is one of those. Countless hours spent helping Hayes High athletics, things that obviously a lot of people don't know about, all the behind the scenes things. And there's so many events that go on now that are still a part of Hayes High athletics for the current student athletes. And if it wasn't for Mike Carl, they wouldn't be here. One, the league Hayes High's in, the Western Athletic Conference. Mike Carl formed that to keep Garden, Dodge, Liberal, Hayes, and Great Bend together, the bigger schools in the western half. No small feat, and Mike started that in 1983. The Hayes City Shootout, we've heard a little bit about that. Now the Gerald Mitchell Hayes City Shootout, that was Mike's brainchild, also in 1983. It still is a great tournament, but boy, some of the teams that came in from Pampa, Texas, and Oklahoma, and Nebraska. There were some great Hayes High Kearney games in that great event that still goes on today. And I know Frank Leo's here, the Diamond Classic, the Western Plains Diamond Classic was started then. We couldn't remember the Bob Kuhn wrestling, though, the Prairie Senior Classic, if that started with Mike or not, but that was obviously a big part of it as well. And maybe his crowning achievement, Project Graduation, which seems like everybody has now. Well, not everybody had that. That was Mike's brainchild, and probably one of the things he's most proud of. Started in 1985. I can say as a dad of a recent grad who, it's move-out day on Wednesday in our house, by the way. But being able to participate in that this spring or after graduation, what an unbelievable event. It is so awesome. And Mike shared that with so many schools, too many to remember, to help them start theirs. And who knows how many lives that has saved on graduation night. It's a phenomenal event, and Mike needs to be commended for that. Some of his many other accomplishments. He has been named twice the Kansas Athletic Director of the Year, named the District 4 Athletic Director of the Year. That includes the states of Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Colorado, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota. He received the National Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association Award of Merit. He was named one of the top 6 athletic administrators by the National Athletic Administrator Federation. And in 2008, I think this is quite an honor, he was inducted into the Kansas State High School Activities Association Hall of Fame. A well-deserved honor, quite a career for Mike Carl. And ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the newest member of the Hayes High Athletics Hall of Fame, my friend Mike Carl.
I've been blessed, and I hope you can all hear me, but I've been blessed to work with some sensational kids and sensational coaches and sponsors. And without those coaches and sponsors, I wouldn't be standing here. I wouldn't have traded that group of people for anything in the world. So I'd like all of my people, my coaches, please stand, and sponsors, and be recognized. always thought athletics was about memories, opportunity, and family. And that was my philosophy in working as an athletic director and a school administrator, to involve those three categories, because I know if we did, we'd have an excellent school. But in my mind, it was the memories of all the athletic events. I can remember in the 5th grade on Long Island. Where's my Long Island friends? In Merrick, Long Island. Beating Gene Duncan in the 5th grade track and field day to win the track meet from Mr. Kelly's 5th grade class. How do you remember that? It's a memory. Remember my first football game in 4 days. I could almost call every play for you tonight that we ran that night. But it's memories. It's memories. I remember in 1993 being able to watch 9 of our football players that year sign letters of intent to Division I and Division II universities. One of those was my son. And I'm so proud of him for how he succeeded in college. I had the opportunity, sometimes as an AD and a dad, you can kind of work things together. But I had the opportunity to watch both my daughters golf and make All-State. And I watched Stacy have the round of her life and finish 2nd in 5A. And I think Coach Watts, I think it was probably 5th in 5 and 6A combined. But what a memory. I can remember some special things with my coaches. One I can remember in 1989, that track and field team, those girls winning the state championship. And I remember in particular the deal they were working with Coach Maska, that if they won it, he'd run a victory lap. And I thought, God, I gotta call 911 tonight. I can remember a soccer team. And Chris is here tonight, and he's here from Oklahoma. But I can remember a soccer team in our 4th or 5th year of existence. You know, we were all kind of rookies, but in that 5th year, I can remember winning the regional, beating Great Bend, and that was good enough for me. I didn't need to go any farther. But we wound up playing Cape and Mount Carmel in the semis to get to the state championship games in Kansas City and beat Cape and Mount Carmel. I'll never forget the moms and the dads and the kids, and the celebration on that field was a memory that I'll never forget. I can remember, and we've mentioned Coach Kuhn before, but I can remember like it was yesterday at the state wrestling meet in Wichita. I can remember Mike Aller in particular. You guys will remember Mike Aller, heavyweight, tremendous wrestler, had a headlock that could kill a cow. But the state championship match, Mike went out and put his opponent in one of those locks and wound up pinning this young man. And I can remember, Matt, you're looking at me like, yeah, I can remember this too. But Mike Aller came running off the mat. And I'm thinking, God, there's going to be a collision, because Bob was pretty big too. But Mike just jumped into Bob's arms, and they both cried in joy. What a memory, because of athletics. And the one I'll always remember was a little 6-year-old young man. His name was Mikey Steiner. How many remember this, what we did for Mikey? Mikey was dying of a brain tumor, but he loved Hayes High basketball. Coach Keller, right? Coach Watts. So Gary Herman's here. I don't want you to listen to what I'm going to say now, because I'll get in trouble. Scott Worth came to me one day, and it was early in the morning, about 9 o'clock. And he said, Mr. Carl, I need to go get a shirt made. Can you get me out of school? And I'm thinking, holy cow, that's going to open a can of worms, and Gary's going to come after me, and we're going to go at it. But I said, can you assure me that it's absolutely necessary? He said, I can assure you, I got to get this shirt. So I said, I tell you what, you go get the shirt, I'll take care of the attendance, which I never did. I think we snuck it by you, Gary. But Scott did come back with a shirt. And some of you remember it was a gold t-shirt with a number 6 on the back. Mikey number 6. And Mikey was the 6th man of that basketball team. We couldn't leave the parking lot without Mikey on the bus. He would run the team onto the court before games. He was at state tournament. And then we found out that this brain tumor has grown. And he didn't have much time left. And because of the generosity of probably many of you people, and people from all over the country, this is before we had social media, we raised $30,000 in a week and sent Mike and his family to Disneyland. An athletic memory I'll never forget. What did Hayes High do for me? I tried to do a bunch for Hayes High, and I hope we got a little bit of accomplishments on there anyway. But what did it do for me? When I was 10 years old, there was a coach in grade school by the name of Coach Skillman, and another one named Coach Tatura. And then in 9th grade, there was a coach named Coach Basha. They were tremendous coaches, and Coach DeMott, and Val has met him. But it was my life dream, early in my age, to have a career in athletics. I didn't know what it was going to be. I wasn't 6'5", so I wasn't going to play on Sundays. But Hayes High gave me that opportunity. And we talked about memories, we talked about opportunities. What more could a person ask that wanted to be involved with athletics? What an opportunity. We had opportunities to leave. And I've never made this public, but we could have gone to Nassau Community College on Long Island as an offensive quarterback coach and offensive back coach. We could have gone to Lincoln High School in Lincoln, Nebraska, a school of 4,000 with an extremely diverse population. And what a challenge that would have been. And then when the phone rang that day and it was the superintendent in Lincoln saying it's yours if you want it, it was hard to just believe that that offer was being made. But you know, Val and I talked. And I've always said that home is where you're happy. And we were pretty happy here. Why should we want to leave that situation? So we turned that down and we stayed here, and there are no regrets whatsoever. Third thing I wanted to talk about was family. This job is very exciting, but very busy. A lot of nights, a lot of weekends, a lot of summer to get things done. I'm blessed to have had the best family in the world. And understanding why I needed to be gone so much, I was blessed with the best wife in the world. Val, stand up. Teacher at Hayes High, she taught special ed, and for 8 hours a day I was the boss, you know, but then I go home and that all changed in a hurry. She spent many nights alone, many weekends alone, many nights bringing up Burger King to Hayes High, and we would have supper together in the custodian's room. But I owe her everything. Part of this award really goes to her. So committee, thank you very much. I'll never forget this night. What an honor. When Matt came to the house and Rudy came to the house, they knocked on the door and I thought, oh God, 2 more people want me to run for school board. And I looked at them and I said, don't even start. We've got Tammy Wellbrock and that's as good as you're going to get. You don't need me. Then they told me what was going on. What a thrill. What a thrill. So thank you, committee. Thanks for all the hard work that you've done. And I hope this goes on forever. What a special night for a lot of people. Thank you very much.
You did not that Mike was responsible for forming the Western Athletic Conference. And so now every time that I jump into the car for a 3-hour trip to Liberal one way so that we can compete in an event and then do it for my daughter's teams, I know who to blame. So thanks, Mike. Coaches spend most of their times deflecting praise and accepting too much criticism. For their players, the title coach is often the first word out of their mouths years, decades after they were actually, coach. Tonight, 2 coaches close out the first class of the Hayes High Athletics Hall of Fame. First, Tucker Woofter helps induct Coach Bob Kuhn.
I'd like to start off tonight by saying thank you to those of you that made this happen. It's a very special night, and I know many of us have appreciated the opportunity. I'd like to say congratulations to all of you that were inducted tonight. But this is a big one to all of you coaches and teachers that are here tonight that made an impact on those that were inducted. I'd like to tell you thank you from the bottom of my heart. This is going to be difficult because we're talking about somebody that so many of us love, truly loved. So I know I'm going to get emotional, and I'm going to try not to ramble on. So I've practiced and practiced and practiced, but I promise you, whatever it takes, this thing's going to be done in about an hour, so bear with me here. So many people get inducted into a Hall of Fame, and oftentimes they have a title next to their name as to why they're deserving. I myself believe that Coach Kuhn should go into our Hall of Fame as simply Bob Kuhn, because he was so much more than just a single title. He was an amazing husband and father, athlete, educator, citizen, soldier, and human being. Depending on who you talk to, you're probably going to hear some story that's incredibly hard to believe about how truly amazing he was. To highlight just a few of Coach's accolades, he was a standout 3-sport high school and college athlete. He set a collegiate discus record in his time at Fort Hays. He was a 3-sport coach for 36 years. He was an educator for 35, where he taught adapted physical education, and from my understanding, he created the adapted PE program that our district currently has, and then serviced every child of special needs in this district for 33 years by himself alone. He was a weightlifting instructor and the most imposing lunchroom monitor the face of the earth has ever seen. He was a Vietnam vet, as well as serving 33 years in the Army Reserve. He earned the Military Bronze Star Legion of Merit. Shoot, our Army Reserve Center here in town is named after him. As a wrestling coach, there are so many things that we can say about him, but he coached 70 state medalists, 24 state finalists, 14 state championships. He finished in the top 3 in the state 3 different times. He had 5 league titles. He had 5 regional championships. He earned the Sportsmanship Award in 1995 and again in 2000. He was in the Kansas Wrestling Officials Association Coach of the Year in 2000. And again in 2000, he was the National Federation Coaches Association. That's all sports. District 5 Coach of the Year. He himself is in 3 different Hall of Fames, the National Wrestling Coaches Hall of Fame, the Kansas Wrestling Coaches Hall of Fame, and the Fort Hays State Athletic Hall of Fame. So as I started doing all of my research, and I promise you there are more accolades, I began asking myself, why am I deserving of this honor tonight? And I can tell you, I came up with a number of reasons as to why I was not worthy, and a list of people that would clearly do a better job. The only thing I could maybe come back to is that the Woofter family, and this is an insult, I'm sorry to you Coons, has a weird connection with Coach Kuhn and his family. In college, my father Wayne wrestled Coach Kuhn. My mother Chera Lou taught with him at Wilson Elementary. Both of my sisters were managers in football, wrestling, and were throwers for him in track. I was taught by his wife Cindy in both high school and college, and for that, Cindy, I'm so sorry. Coach's son, Matt, treated me like a little brother. He picked on me, he protected me, he picked on me some more. He was my role model, he was my mentor. When he went off to college, he still came back every single year to work with us throughout his college career. That's true investing in somebody other than yourself, and I know that that was taught by his father. I had two sisters, Jocelyn and Whitney, and when they graduated high school, Whitney got sick with cancer. And at that point, Bob Kuhn became so much more than a coach to our family. He became a counselor and a great support system for our family, all the while he was in a battle for his life with cancer himself. Coach Kuhn created a program that may not have won as many state titles as Arc City, but the program he did develop is still so much bigger than wins and losses. He developed a program that managers, wrestlers, wrestling cheerleaders were going to be a part of his family forever. In his time here at Hayes High, there were so many great assistant coaches. A number of them went on to be head coaches themselves. Some turned to the dark side and became administrators. But many of them stayed on, willing to accept the role of assistant coach. This means that they were loyal and bought into the program that Coach had and was building. They were valued and encouraged to keep growing, but more importantly, they were loved just like everyone else in the program. Coach Kuhn is such a well-respected man, maybe the most well-respected human I've ever met. I believe he had a true set of morals and values that he didn't just preach, but that he lived by. He treated people, especially students, with love and respect. And I will tell you, I grew up believing, just knowing that I was truly Coach's all-time favorite. And yet, when I came back for his funeral, people began telling stories about how they had this strange relationship with him. And the thing I found out quickly was that everybody believed that they were Coach's favorite. What a true gift to impact people and make them feel that special. And because of this, everyone that ever worked with him never wanted to let him down. He somehow found out what we were hungry to achieve and what we were willing to work for, and then pushed us beyond limits that we didn't know we were capable of pushing past. And the whole time it was somehow our idea. That's something that every educator hopes to achieve. Coach had so many gifts that I believe may go underappreciated. His organizational skills were off the charts. He was always under some plan. Whether it was practice planning, how we checked out gear before and after a competition, where we were going to eat before and after the tournament, according to who served the all-time greatest pie or who served ruby red squirt. And if you were really fortunate enough to get a chance to ride with Coach as you passed through Salina, Kansas, I promise you, you are about to witness something truly great, as one man had perfected the art of eating Hickory Hut's ribs while driving at NASCAR speeds. But above all, it was his ability to tell a story that captivated those around him and somehow drive home a deeper meaning or life lesson. So before I leave here tonight, I want to clear some things up and go on the record. I was Coach's all-time favorite, and at best, you guys were second. But to be serious, I would like to believe that bits and pieces of Coach Kuhn still live on in each and every one of us today that came in contact with him at some point throughout his life. And that's true inspiration. So thank you for inducting my hero into the inaugural class of the Hayes High Athletic Hall of Fame. I don't know which one of the coons is going to come up here to accept it, but I know you guys won't stop squabbling. So if nobody comes up, it's Amy.
And I'll just clarify that Tucker was his favorite. Just to be sure.
One last inductee, and then we just have a few closing remarks to make. Finally, Jim Maska is inducted into the Hall of Fame. Please welcome back Mike Carl.
Many years ago, when I took the AD job, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was blessed to have two mentors. One was Jim Maska, and the other was J.C. Rickenberg from Dodge City. You old coaches like me will remember Jake. He's passed now, and we miss him dearly. Jim Maska was a Hayes boy all his life. He excelled in football, basketball, and track, was a member of that 1953-54 football team that was undefeated. For 35 years he coached football, freshman basketball, track for 10 years as an assistant, and then 25 years as a head coach. 25 more years as head coach for cross country. And he spent several years filling in for an AD when we were looking for people to take that position. From 1968 to 78, Jim's cross-country teams won 10 consecutive regional championships. Jim's team won 5 state cross-country championships, including 4 in a row from 70 to 73. He coached 6 individual state champions and many state placers. Jim coached the girls' state championship track team in 1989. And there was something else that went along with that, and I think I mentioned it earlier, but the girls convinced Jim if they won that he's going to have to run a lap with the kids. I think he won about 2:20, and that was about it. His career included many state and national awards, including, and these are tremendous credentials, National High School Coaches Association Girls Track Coach of the Year for Region 5, Kansas Coaches Association for the Girls Track Coach of the Year in 88 and 89. Kansas State High School Activity Association Girls Coach of the Year in 1989. National High School Cross Country Coach of the Year in 1974. And this is one big country, and he was number 1. The Kansas Cross Country Preseason Coaches Poll is now named after Jim Maska. In 1996, Jim was inducted into the Kansas State High School Activity Association Hall of Fame. Tremendous credentials. And there's a story I want to tell about Jim, and I don't need any notes for this. But before I do, I'd like for his kids to come up here and join me while they listen to this story. Deb Watts, Kurt Maska, Lisa, Jill, and Susie, please come up here with me. You didn't know we were doing this, did you? God, I had all these kids in high school. I'm getting old. I didn't have you, no. Kurt, where are you? The bar's closed. You have to understand that our track program has come a long way. We talked about athletes running on dirt and cinder, and that's what we did. Our press box was an old district red pickup truck where I put a little Bose machine in and tried to reach across the entire area out at Hayes High so people knew when they were supposed to run. Jim would always come into the office, not always, but enough. And he'd talk about how he wished our kids, not him, how our kids had a track and a facility that other kids we competed against had. I kept telling him, be patient, we'll make it happen. And you know, he had that bottle of Coke with the peanuts in it every day, right? And he'd say, yeah, and time to get to class. But we got that track for him. We got a press box for him. And one day in August, early August, there were only 2 people left in the school, and I think it was Jim and I. I was in the storage room checking on some equipment, and I came out. Jim was standing in the commons area, all by himself, looking across the student parking lot out toward the track. And he was almost in a daze. And I went up to him and I said, Jim, you okay? And he said, Mike, I got my track. I said, I know, Jim. He said, you know, I have a great family, and I have a dream come true in this track that I'm looking at. And he had just finished striping the track that day. He said to me, I'm a lucky man. I've got a great family and I've got my track. And there were tears coming down his cheeks when he said that. That evening I took a phone call. I think it was from Kirk, I can't remember. But Jim left that little conversation we had in the commons area, went home and worked in the yard. Died of a fatal heart attack. But I want you guys to know that he left us very happy. Not just with the track, but with you guys. And I know your mom's looking down too right now saying, this is pretty cool. He was a heck of a man, guys. And his track was the greatest thing we could have given him. And I'll never forget it. We talked about memories, and that's a great one. So on behalf of the committee and everybody in here, thanks for all you've done. Thanks for your family. Thanks for a heck of a dad that was a great coach.
I want to thank Mike. I first met Mike when I started 7th grade, and at some point by semester I thought Mike might be my dad because he paddled me so much with that stick. Learned a lot from Mike Carl. He'd been in my life for a long time. Bob Coombs the same way. Idolized Bob when I was a little kid, riding on buses to activities, and amazed how much chicken the guy could eat at Ralph Wallace Buffet in Topeka. And, you know, in all those things, and you know, and most of my stories about these guys aren't about athletics necessarily, things that happened with athletics. And I remember just right after we moved back to Hayes, and Bob calls me and he goes, what are you doing this weekend? And I said, not anything, I don't think. And Bob said, he goes, you want to help me take furniture to Amy? She just moved to Topeka. And I said, yeah, not a problem. And he goes, we got to stop at Junction City. And I got one more chance to take my PT test and get my 2-mile run in. And I thought, okay, this is going to be a really good trip. I get to watch Bob Coon run a 2-mile run. And I mean, you know, I don't know that he could run out of sight in a day, but he could run fast from 40 yards. But anyway, we get to Junction City. He picks me up, I don't know, it's 5 in the morning, dark, and we take off. And we get to Junction City, he gets out, he's all ready to go. And I look back and I go, Bob, were there cushions on those couches and chairs and stuff in the back? And he goes, well, yeah. And there aren't any now. So you should have tied those down. And I thought, you know, that was Bob in a nutshell. He had the biggest heart in the world, and you know, it wasn't always placed right sometimes, I guess, you know what I'm trying to say. But fond memories of both these guys, and as far as my dad's concerned, you know, until this kind of came about, I mean, there's things that we had no idea. Dad, from the time he started kindergarten till he passed away, USD 49 was his life. I mean, he loved the kids. You know, I don't know, I get stories all the time. Your dad got me my first job. Your dad got me this. Your dad kept me in shoes. Your dad did this. We had kids live with us, and you know, and I was like, we didn't have much, but we had everything we needed. We had love, and you know, my sisters will attest for, you know, it was a good life. And just to share a few things, you know, I think I've shared with some people tonight. I've been going through all this stuff, reading, and Dad didn't talk much about himself. Didn't, you know, I'm getting stories that I've never heard before. But going through this research, some things that I didn't know, and Dustin mentioned the 1931 football team went undefeated. My dad's dad, my grandpa, was a senior on the 31 football team. And I thought, that is really neat. Now, I wish his son and his grandsons would have been on the football teams, but obviously the talent level's dropping off. But and one thing I was so excited, I was texting away and I was sending pictures to my sister. My father was the lead in the play State Fair in high school. And I'm like, man, the guy did it all. And we're so proud of him, and he would be so honored tonight, and I'm sure he's up there with Bob and a lot of other Hays High Indians, and they're looking down and smiling, and what a wonderful thing. I know this has gone a little long tonight. It's past my bedtime, that's for sure, but it was tough to narrow it down. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of people that are deserving to be in this, and they will be someday. And you know, we whittled it down, and we thought this is an excellent class, and the more I listened to talk tonight, I thought we did a really excellent job of picking this first class tonight. So thank you for all being a part of this. Turn it back over to Dustin here and take this for.
We're going to take a picture, Kirk.
Thank you so much, guys.
You know, it's good wait, but one Bob Coon story, man, you've never heard. I love my coaches so much. Sometimes they did some things that got me in trouble. You know, my phone ringing on Monday morning, what is that guy doing? One phone call I got was from our superintendent, and you never like those calls on a Monday morning. But Bob didn't like to go by the speed limit. You know, if the speed limit was 65, he thought it was 85. But our superintendent gets a phone call one time. Mr. Kaufman, one of your school Suburbans was going about 80 miles an hour, airborne over railroad tracks, and a shortcut between Great Bend and Hayes. You go through Otis, and you know that kind of one-lane highway. Well, you go over the railroad tracks, and Bob hit it at about 80 miles an hour. But the worst part of the whole thing, while he's doing that, he's got a fuzzbuster in a school vehicle. He's trying to kill me, man. Thanks again, everybody. Thank you very much.
And so what better way to finish out the night than with that? And you've been sitting for a while, so maybe stretch your legs and let's go into the Hays High alma mater.